What's up, everybody?
We are live again. It's Friday night. It's time for another episode of Friday Night Shenanigans. And I'm not going to call you a special guest because you're like an original guest.
I'm special.
You're special.
You're definitely special.
He's special. So we got Skylar back. We dragged Skylar out of the darkness and brought him back into the light.
I'm here.
And we're going to have a good time talking about preparation for the season. I mean, really the season is... Ooh, plastic. Really the season is here. I know the water temperatures are in the 50s. And how do you get your rods ready?
False.
How do you get your...
The water temperatures are not in the 50s.
Where are they?
They are... So, Nate Brown was in the pond today. He told me it was 45.
45.
You were way off.
That is quite a fluctuation. I
So-
know for a fact that it was in the 50s the other week.
It was 49 in the Susquehanna a couple weeks ago. And it dropped down to like 42. And it's been hovering 42, 43 for the last like week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it dropped a lot. It was... I mean, I had 50 in Mansion Cove when I just went out messing around because I didn't have any gas in my boat. I didn't have time to put gas in my boat because I was going after work.
You live right next to a gas station.
Yeah, but it was a matter of like I it was like 4 o'clock. It gets dark at 6, and I was just like trying to get on the water. So I was like, I can stop and get gas and waste 15 minutes, or I can just
You got to get there.
go. So I didn't really have gas to go anywhere, but it was 50 degrees in Mansion Cove.
50 degrees.
Not anymore.
I mean,
It's
so
cold.
50 degrees. It's time to go. I mean, it's fishing time. How do you get your rods ready? How do you get your reels ready? Do you clean them? Do you re-spool them?
So I don't really. Oh, okay.
How do you keep track of your combos? After you break your rods down and you have 100 rods up against the wall and 100 reels, how do you keep track of all your combinations?
So I'm ridiculously OCD, and I know
I know.
exactly which rods go on exactly which reels go on which rods. I generally know what line is on every rod. I keep 30 rods in my boat, give or take, 25 to 30, depending on how on I'm on. So I just know. That's just one of the. What'd you do?
Muted his mic.
Yeah, that made our sound kind of weird.
Sounds good to me.
I just changed, I guess. I don't think you have to do that. Remember, our recording sounded really
Yeah,
good.
I know. Curiosity kills the cat.
So I do. I as far as cleaning my reels, unless I have, like, my frog rod, that reel gets cleaned every year because it just gets, fishing
Scum,
crap.
yeah.
You get that scum and stuff on there. Most of my reels, I just pull it off and oil. I oil the spool bearings and that's about it. I don't tear the whole thing apart unless it's starting to feel a little chunky or something like that. Then I'll pull it apart. But really, all you have to do is oil those spool bearings so that you're casting, because that's what's going to affect it the most as far as like when you get water and stuff in there. Yes, I'm very good at cleaning poles. But yeah, as far as
Giggity.
go, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I just clean. I just oil the spool bearings. Respooling, I wait as long as possible to respool my rods, but I'll respool every one of them before the first tournament.
Between every tournament?
No, before the first tournament.
Okay.
From there out, I'll respool. Like if I used 5 rods out of 25, like I'm not gonna respool the 20 that I didn't use because it's fresh line on all of them.
Right.
But those 5 that I used, I'll respool before the next tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Backing is key there. We've talked about this before because I do respool the rods that I use. I respool them before every tournament. So I run a lot of backing. And
Do you do the old like swap trick? You unspool your spool and then you use some of the backing of your old line?
No, I back most, depending on what reels they are. If it's a deep spool, I'll back it with braid.
Okay.
Because it's lighter.
What else
it
do you,
doesn't weigh as much.
If it's not with braid, then
If
what
it's
do you
not with
back?
braid, I just use mono.
Gotcha.
So I'll back it with usually I'll back it with like 12 pound mono. I try to match my backing a little bit to like the size of the line that I use. So I'll use, like if I'm using like 10 to 15 pound fluoro, I'll back it with like 12 pound mono. And then if I'm doing like on my flipping rods, those will get backed with like 15-pound mono.
Right.
You know, so it's just a little bigger diameter, just so it doesn't dig down in as much.
Now, do
But
you do like half backing, half whatever, or do you do like a quarter backing and then like 3/4 regular line? That you,
So generally, I'll back it with as much line as I'm probably going to use if I break off a couple of times.
Gotcha.
So you figure the longest cast that I'm going to make is probably 50 yards. So I'll put like 75 yards of fluoro on.
Gotcha.
And the rest is backing. So you figure, you know, your average spool, if it holds 150, then then it'll be like 50-50. But depending on the reel, that'll depend on how much backing. Like the Daiwa, I fish a lot of Daiwas. They have shallow spools. Those shallow spools I got a lot less backing on than I have actual line.
Gotcha.
I am such a cheapo when it comes to line. Like just like you said in our group text message, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, you were like, my least favorite purchase of the year, like buying a fishing line.
I mean, I in that conversation, I had just gotten in 4,000 yards of fluorocarbon.
Yeah.
Because
Jesus.
that's about what I use through a season.
That's crazy. See, like, I will take me. I'm the type of guy where I might re-spool each of my reels twice a season, maybe, and that's because I bird's nested and had to pull a shitload out, so I might as well re-spool it. And then I'll just take that and I'll pull it down until it's about backing level, and then I'll just use the old stuff for backing.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's fluoro or braid,
But like
that doesn't matter to me. It's just got to take up some spool room.
I don't change. I mean, I don't change my backing from year to year. I mean,
Right.
I always use the same backing.
Yeah.
You know, it's never coming out, so it's not like it's going to go bad or anything like that. You know, unless you hook into like a fucking freaking 40-pound striper.
Drop down, give me 10.
Sorry.
I think, I mean, me personally, now that I'm saying this, it's probably going to happen. I'll re-spool before the first tournament. I'll re-spool everything, but before every tournament, I might pull like 6 feet out or a little more, or whatever, just because, it's, you clamp it onto the bottom and you tie it tight. Now that you have that little pinch point at the top, but I have yet to notice like me breaking off. I don't really.
Like I broke one off back in the pond earlier this year. I mean, I broke one. I was fishing a buddy, and I mean, I broke it off like close to the rod tip with like 60 yards of line out. Like I made like
gotcha.
a bomb cast and got a bite, set the hook, and it broke right at the rod. And that's why I changed my line so much between tournaments. If I'm just fun fishing, like Chad, you do a lot more just fun fishing.
Yeah.
Like if I was doing more,
I'm the most serious fun fisherman you've ever met.
I would not change my line. Oh yeah, but I would not change my line as much. If I was just doing that. But if I'm in a tournament fishing for money, $10 worth of fluorocarbon is not really that big of a deal.
Right.
When it means the difference between
Taking home the gold.
taking home $1,000.
Right.
Yeah, or a couple $1,000s. Real quick, I just want to answer Brian's question from earlier. I am not fishing the tournament tomorrow. I am running the tournament tomorrow. So I was kind of on the fence about fishing it, but I'd have to pull out early to get everything set up. So I'm probably just going to go out and scan around and look around. I mean, I'll definitely be out fishing a little bit tomorrow, but
Yeah. I think that's another thing too. Like you said, you fun fish a lot, right? So I feel like I fun fish a lot too, and the only tournaments that I really fish are the club tournaments. And for me personally, that's just like fun fishing, right? So like I don't change out my stuff as much. If I put into the pot to get some money back, it's not the end of the world if I lose. Like it's, you know what I mean? It's not fishing for $1,000. I can understand that. Then switching out your spool.
I generally
a lot more often.
I generally don't swap out my line for club tournaments. If I know it's good, if I've only used it a couple times, but if I know I'm going to use that rod, like that's going to be like my key bait for that tournament that I'm fishing. Like I've got my pre-fishing, I got it dialed in. It's getting fresh line,
Right.
Because I don't want anything. I want everything to be fresh. I want everything to be good. I don't want to have any kind of failure.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So while we got some of our viewers online, actually, hold this. I'm going to steal this mic from you, and I'm going to go over our thank you to the people that support us. Our sponsors, we have UMA Lure Company, Mr. Tyler Hawthorpe. His lures are phenomenal. I don't know how that moved, but it did. And he makes custom balsa wood crankbaits. custom poppers, fantastic paint, fantastic action. Very happy with those baits. Check him out. And then our soft plastic sponsor, Bass Munitions. The drop shot worms, the Holstein worm,
So
I think is
sick,
what he
yeah.
calls it. Fantastic product. He's got shaky worms, wacky Sinkos. He's got creature trailers, Ned baits, finesse stuff. He's also working on jig heads and hooks and everything in between right now. So we're pretty excited about that. Check out Bass Munitions Custom Soft Plastics at bassmunitionslures.com. And last but not least, our boy Warren with Tailored Lures. And Tailored Lures, he's got his custom frogs that come in. I say custom, he has his frogs come in, and they're a nice small profile, very castable, very edible. They come with very, very stout hooks on them, which I thought was
Heavy.
Yeah, they're-
stainless steel saltwater hooks.
yeah. I mean,
so especially if you're chasing those snakeheads. I mean, they're
he's geared more towards the snakes for sure, and those hooks definitely make a difference driving through the mouth of some of them snakes. So
my biggest thing with them is just the durability when you actually catch them. You know, because if you fish like a booyah that has like a lighter wire hook, a snakehead will destroy those hooks quick. I mean, they'll bend them to crazy. But you know, hey Brian, what's going on? Brian Setlock in the house.
what's going on, Mr. B to the Ryan?
Mr. Setlock has a couple of tournament trails going on this year. He has his Conolingo trail that he's had for the last few years, which is a good trail. Got to fish a couple of their tournaments last year. And he has a new flats trail this year.
Ooh.
Yeah, so out of Anchor. So look out for those. Keep an eye out for those. That is the Susquehanna.
The northeast ramp, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's called the Susquehanna Flats Trail. Keep an eye out for that. Brian puts on a good tournament, and those should be fun. We should get a lot of participation on those.
That's awesome.
He also has a big bass tournament too, which I don't have all the details on, so I don't want to speak on it too much, but it sounds pretty good. Keep an eye out on Brian's Facebook. He's been posting quite a bit about that, but there's I think it's called the Big Bass Bash on the Upper Bay.
Big bass. It sounds like a swim bait thing.
It's pretty cool. I know, like I said, I don't want to give out too many of the details because I don't know what he's putting out there yet. But I know, based on his Facebook, so it's out there in the public for the Big Bass, this Big Bass tournament. Oh, yeah, free championship on the flats for those who qualify. That's pretty good for the flat trail. That's pretty awesome.
Okay.
That's cool.
So
pretty
for the big bass thing, if you catch there are two $10,000 prizes if you catch an 8-pounder. So
Ooh.
if pay up to 2 spots over 8 pounds for the. So if you have 2 8-pounders, that's $10,000 for each one.
That's sick.
I don't know the exact details on like who can win. You know, like you can win both of them, or if you can only win one. But keep an eye out. Check out Brian's Facebook pages. He's got Facebook pages for all of his tournament trails. His big bass, I fished one of his big bass tournaments last year, and it was probably the most fun tournament that I fished last year. There's so little pressure. Like, we went out and we caught a fish in like the first 30 minutes. And we're like, oh, cool, we got one to weigh in. We don't have to worry about fishing the limit. So we got something to weigh in. So, you know, we had fun. We didn't cash any checks in it. We were like, I think we were like third, and it was paying out 2 places for that particular tournament, and I think we were third in like 2 of the periods.
Mhm.
That's cool.
But we had a good time.
I definitely like having a no pressure tournament. Honestly, I think that's me. Like we were saying a little bit earlier, I'm kind of a little bit more on the fun fisherman side. I think that's why I really like the Thursday nighters a lot.
Oh, yeah,
The
they're
Thursday night threefers are like my bread and butter for me. Like I get to go in, I get to be a little competitive and kind of get a little feel the tournament side of things just a little bit, but I don't have to go out and dedicate myself to a club for a full-time schedule.
Well, that big bass tournament would be perfect for you because you can
Right.
go out throw a big bait. I
Right.
mean, all day and just swing for the fences and
Ike
you know.
Foundation. I want to try out the Ike Foundation. That's a big tournament.
That's a
but,
big
you know,
tournament. That's fun.
getting involved with a club where you have to be dedicated to specific dates and stuff is where
So
I have.
The thing is, though,
the thing with the club is it can be as serious as you want it to be, and depending on what club you're in, that depends on how many tournaments you have to fish. Like my club has 8 tournaments. We have 1 tournament a month. So it's not like it's not a huge deal. You only have to make time for 1 weekend a month.
Right.
To fish the club.
Hey,
It's
Tony.
not like some tournament like MR Bass has like 12 tournaments, and it starts getting when you start getting into stuff and wanting to fish like the Thursday nighters, and you want to fish the Ike tournament and the Susquehanna fishing tackle tournament, and it starts getting to be a lot for club tournaments. That in the grand scheme of things,
It's like what, one to 2 tournaments a month. I mean, it's not crazy. I mean,
yeah, but it starts when you start fishing other stuff is when it starts to get.
you start mixing in the other. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Like I can work around 8 tournaments with all the other stuff with the ABAs and
fish
the
the Lake tournaments
SQTs
and the
and all the other
fishing
stuff that I
tackle.
fish.
Start
but,
making-
Tony says he's not that good. Well,
I totally just thought our audio died for a second. I was like,
sorry, I had to read. So, Tony, I believe to qualify for those tournaments, you do not have to qualify. You just have to fish a certain amount of tournaments. I may be wrong on that, but I think to qualify for his championship, you just have to fish a certain amount of tournaments.
Tony's schedule always screws him.
I
with
know.
Tournaments.
Yes.
It's like every time there's a tournament, he is.
Every single time.
Anytime he wants to fish a Conowingo tournament too, it's always he can't do it.
He can't do
yeah.
it, or the wind's
And
blowing
he
50
loves
miles an
Wingo.
hour.
Right.
Yeah, he loves Wingo. It's either
Yeah,
terrible
see-
conditions or he has drill or something of the other.
Thanks for clearing that up, Brian. Yeah, so if you fish 4, you get a free entry into the championship.
Oh, that's tight.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. Might be a little bit of something to think about.
Oh,
there.
or if you fish 3, you can buy into the championship tournament. Look at that. That's pretty sweet.
You might
too.
have to put a little something in Scuba Steve's ear.
Hey, I mean, there's a good possibility that I might be able to make most of those tournaments. I have to look at the schedule. There's a lot of tournaments in the early part of the year, but I think
Tons.
most of Brian's tournaments are on Sundays, which really opens it up.
Oh yeah,
Can I get a beer?
of course.
Thank you, my sir.
So what? So you mentioned the Ike tournament. Any other tournaments you plan on fishing this year?
I wanted to fish the Ike tournament. Obviously, I want to hit the Thursday nighters.
Yeah.
We're going to cover the Thursday nighters like we did last year, except even better this year. And there was definitely a couple of like I wanted to fish a couple of like the SQTs, or not the SQTs. Some of the opens up on Conowingo.
Okay.
Some of the Conowingo opens.
I'll tell you a good one to look out. That I was just getting ready to mention that, Brian. A good one for you to check out. Susquehanna Fishing Tackle SummerSlam. So their entry into that is a $100. I think it's $100 or $200 Shimano purchase. So like you could pick up a new reel, and that's your entry into it.
You're gonna
that's
make
so
me
sick.
buy a new fishing reel to fish?
Because you don't.
Yes.
That's the best thing I've ever
Exactly.
heard in my whole life.
So it's basically, it's you think about it.
Take
it's
my
like-
money!
It's like a free entry because it's not like you're buying yourself a reel. I think they do. It's Shimano. I know Shimano and Jackall.
Brian said 250.
Yeah, Brian knows. So thanks, Brian. So $250. It's Shimano and Jackall and I think one other brand.
Jackal.
And so you have to purchase it from Susquehanna Fishing Tackle, starting I believe April 1st. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. There you go, Power Pro Loomis too.
Ooh, all
See,
right,
got
right
Brian on here. Brian
Loomis.
on here spitting the
Loomis,
truth.
dude, it's not going to be hard
So-
for me. That's a new X Pride right there.
Right.
Coming home.
Yeah, you get a new X Bride, you're good to go. So
Will be the fourth one.
So it has to be after April 21st, and you just have to tell them when you get it that you want your entry into SummerSlam, and they'll put you down, and you'll get in. And it's a fun tournament. I fished it a couple years ago. I didn't get to fish it last year. I finished 4th in that tournament 2 years ago. Finished one of the teams that was ahead of us didn't get into the side pot. So we ended up getting 3rd place in the side pot, and I think we won I want to say that we won, like, for fourth place, like $1,000
That's sick.
for essentially a free entry.
Right.
You know, it was, you know, my buddy bought a Metanium, and that was our entry into the tournament.
That's sick. That's
So he
That's
bought a
cool.
reel that he was buying anyway.
So what do you just have to like show the receipt or something like that?
You just
bought?
tell them when you purchase it.
Oh, cool.
So when you purchase it, you can just tell them, and they'll mark you down for the entry.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's a really really sweet tournament. The guys at
partner
Susquehanna-
tournament, right?
Yes.
Partner yeah, okay.
And only it's one $250 purchase for the boat. So like if you purchase like an X Bride for $250, then your boat's in, so you can fish with whoever you want. Had a really good time fishing it. The guys at Susquehanna Fishing Tackle are great. I love going up and talking to those guys. I try to. They're one of the few local tackle shops around. Even if they're about an hour and 15 minutes away from us, I try to buy as much stuff as I can from them. I actually just got a shipment from them today.
I saw
So
some of those.
I hit up their online sale earlier this week.
What were some of those things you got? Some of the Berkeley Stunner,
The Stunna
the Berkeley Stunner.
What is that?
jerkbait. So it's a jerkbait that was designed by Hank Cherry. Because Chad is, you know, obviously Chad hates Berkeley with a passion for some reason. So every time I say Berkeley, we're just gonna fart on him. Really, the only reason that I got so to my defense, the only reason that I got the Stunners is because I wanted to try a shock color jerkbait, and I wanted something that was similar to, you know, we throw red in the spring, so I want to try a jerkbait like that, and so I bought the Stunners.
The Stunner.
With an A. And then the day after that I ordered them online, Mike puts up a picture and they're like, yeah, we got the new Mega Bass special edition colors in. And there's one like the exact same
One
color.
like that tiger color,
like the orange
violent
tiger.
viper.
Yeah.
Mega
I'm
Bass
like,
colors like a
no!
violent viper color they do. It's actually one of my favorite springtime crankbait colors is that freaking violent viper.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted when I was on their website. I was looking for it. I was
Yeah.
looking for that exact Mega Bass jerkbait. And then so I was like, I'll just get this. I can get two of the Stunners for the same price. So that's fine.
Stunner.
That way, if they do work and I lose one,
I was about to say that though. I was like, you probably got one for like half the price or less than.
I think they're
Vision
15,
110.
but they were 20% off. So
Yeah, it's perfect.
I think, yeah. So it ended up being like $12. So two of them were like the price of one Mega Bass.
That's awesome.
Totally worth going. It sounds like it's totally worth checking out that tournament. Going up there,
Oh, for sure.
$250 for buy a rod, get a reel, get a rod and a reel. Get some
You could
line,
get
whatever.
For $250. I mean, you can get a
walk
decent
away with
rod
a lot
and
of
reel.
stuff.
I mean, you could get, you could get a Corrado rod and reel for like what, $300.
Be cool if you
Give or
could go
call
and buy
$350.
$250 worth of frogs, and then like
If they're all jackal frogs,
oh yeah, well, you can't beat that.
right? I know how you feel about those.
I love them.
So but you'd only have, you'd have to buy what, like 20 of them.
I think I was with you. I want to bring it back to that whole Berkeley thing. If you want to fart real quick, but I was with you. It was a Thursday nighter. You had bought like what, Berkeley trailers or something like that. And
Oh my god.
That was the night that Chad was like,
Top
he
tiers.
was cursing Berkeley like up and
Dude.
down. He's like, I'm never gonna do this again. He's like, screw these guys. Like, it was the funniest
I'm
thing.
telling you right now, dude, it fucked me out of placing in that tournament. Ah.
Yeah.
You
Try
know,
to
what's,
give me
you
10.
know what's funny is I actually have this available. What the?
That's so good.
So, I think it was more of your setup on those than anything else.
What was it? Do you remember what you were throwing?
It was the Berkeley Toad. It was like a.
Yeah.
It was like a.
Yeah,
It was like
yeah,
a.
yeah.
It was like a
Toad
speed.
runner
It was
or
like a.
whatever.
It was like
It was
a
like a
Toad
speed-
runner
like a
or
Zoom,
whatever, yeah. But like, man, like
Whatever
I
the
could
Zoom
not.
Toad is.
Yeah.
It landed on its freaking face all the time, and then drug the hook through the grass, and
Yeah, that's
or
the-
it
that's the
freaking
setup.
it broke, or it just the hookup ratio was terrible, and then we ended up turning around and getting blown up on frogs,
Yeah.
on the hollow body frogs, and then I missed a bunch of hollow body frogs,
a rough
and then
day.
I'm telling you, everybody in that tournament probably could have heard me cursing back in the reeds that day.
That's funny.
I'm like, it was just like we went all day long, or all day. We went.
My man
the whole-
Ken Berry on yes Ken Berry. I am drinking a Corona.
I said all day. We went 2 hours, and without a bite, and then all of a sudden we started getting bites.
I think it felt like all day for you.
It felt like all day for me, and I kept missing them, and I was just like, "Grr!" Like it just, I was going off. But that was not a good tournament, and that was one of those. That was actually one of those learning experience days for me, where I was just like, I had to go home and sit down and just like rethink shit. I just had to be like, you got to stop getting so angry over this. I'm like, it's just fishing, and at the end of it, nobody gives a shit anyways. You're gonna go back in the parking lot and drink beer with your friends. So, kind of
That's the thing, and that's one of the mental aspect of tournament fishing is one of the hardest things.
Right.
Then there's two sides of that. One is not getting spun out. When bad things are happening, and I heard somebody. I want to say it was Pete Glusek was fishing as a co-angler, and he was paired with KVD. And KVD, I think they were on Eufaula, and KVD had hooked like an 8-pounder on a crankbait, and he like gets it like right to the boat and loses an 8-pounder at the boat. And you know what he did? Checked his hooks and just cast it. Like never said a word about it. Just said it's alright. I'll get another one.
Yep.
I just started. And
It doesn't help you to sit there and get all mad and frustrated, because then you're taking away from what your job is, like from what you have to get done. So the more time you spend complaining, you're not fishing.
Well, and it affects you mentally, so it's going to affect how you're fishing.
Right.
You're going to start speeding up, and you're getting frustrated. So you're cranking that crankbait in like this instead of crawling it like you should be, or if you're fishing a chatterbait, you're winding that chatterbait, right?
Oh yeah.
Instead of dragging it on the bottom like you should be.
Do that one more time.
Giggity.
And I can say that, like, obviously, like you said, like the mental aspect's huge, and I know, like, if it's a long day and like you're not catching anything, it's just one of those days, whatever it is, or you're just catching dinks. Like, the more mentally frustrated I get, the more physically exhausted I get. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just drained by like halfway through the tournament, or like towards the end, like you just don't even want to be there anymore.
So I can say, Ken Berry he just asked me if he remembers if that was a big thing for him. I fished a couple of tournaments with him where he lost some fish, lost some good fish, and just last November we were fishing a tournament on Susquehanna. He's on the back of my boat, loses a 3-pound smallmouth at the boat, and never affected him. Like he didn't let it bother him. He just immediately just right back out there. Next cast caught a 2.5-pounder.
And that's usually how I am. Like, if I lose, like, I know it's like a decent fish or something, I typically don't get upset. Like, I'll keep it up here.
Do you have any idea how close I came to breaking rods?
What it do,
I
Gromster?
get bad.
Really?
Yeah. If I lose a big one, I spin out a little bit. But I'm
You've
used to.
experienced this for me.
Yes, absolutely.
But I've tried to be in the last couple of years to not let it bother me.
Right, but you fish a lot more serious tournaments than I do, so I could understand that maybe in a serious tournament. I don't think I've ever really fished like a completely competitive serious tournament before. So like, I don't know how I'd be in that atmosphere, but I'd like to think that I would stay collected, cool, calm. But like, I don't know.
We'll find out in June.
Are you not fishing for the state team this year?
I am.
Yeah.
And it's
that was a pretty serious tournament.
I'm really
Breaking into-
nervous.
Yeah.
He did all right down there.
Yeah, man. It was crazy. I came in with like 4 1/4 pounds, and I was like, oh well, that was fun. Like, this is it. Like, it was cool to just experience. And I come in there, and I was honestly surprised. Like, one, for the time of the year too. Like, obviously you're down there at the chop tank. You're not. I didn't expect to catch anything big, but Pokemon, sorry, yeah. But I didn't expect 4 1/4 to like get me to where it got me.
Right.
And that was the craziest part about it. And I was
You ended up second.
surprised.
I mean, that's the thing down there with, sometimes anywhere really with a co-angler, like outside of the springtime. I mean, you can. I had a Deep Creek's another place like that. I had one of my co-anglers won off the back of my boat one year with like 5 pounds. He had 3 fish for 5 pounds, or like maybe 5 1/4. It was 5 something, and he ended up winning the tournament. So, this year, my co-angler had 6 pounds and won on Deep Creek.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so especially as a co-angler, a lot of times those, it doesn't take a lot of weight. Now,
Right, that's true.
Other times, I fished a Mr. Bass tournament on the Potomac one year, where the J.R. Robertson, who old timer, right, and he can catch him. He won the co-angler side with like 13 pounds a day. 3 fish.
Well, that was another thing too. The whole time I was fishing, me and my boater thought it was 5 fish for the both of us. And so I'm sitting there calling for 5 fish, and I get in there, and he overhears someone, and they're like, "Yeah, I got my 3 fish," and he's like, "Oh crap!" So he comes over to me. He's like, "Yo, it's just 3 fish." And so I had to go up to the guy who was running it, and I told him, I was like, "Listen, I have 5 fish." I was like, I just found out it was supposed to be 3. Like, I had no idea. Like, no one told me. Like, even in the beginning of the day, like, they went over rules and stuff, but they didn't go over that. And so he was like, "It's fine, just like drop.
I think it's
drop 2."
I think it's so you don't run into as a co-angler. You're not running into so much of an issue there. I can see both sides if you want to like get really nitpicky about
Right.
the rules. But you're not going over your daily limit. Like with a boater, like if we keep more than our limit, we're over the legal limit.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
So you were never over your legal limit, so it's not that big of a deal. The only thing that I could see being like shady about it would be like, if you kept 5 fish and like one of them died.
Right.
Right.
Right. And that
And
was
then
one
you
of
just
my
don't-
concerns.
You just
too.
don't weigh in that dead fish,
Right.
but so you keep 5 just so you can't. Oh, I can't call a dead fish, but doesn't mean I can't keep more than
Right. Me being an honest person, like that would eat me up inside. Like I would obviously tell him, like,
Yeah.
"Listen, like there's a dead. Like out of the 5 here, there's 1 dead. Like should I weigh that? Like should I bring that in? Like obviously, like it should count against me. So I wouldn't let myself get away.
Well, no, and you did the right thing. You went to before you weighed in. You went
Yep.
to the tournament director and you talked to them, and that's what you have to do. In anytime you have a questionable situation in a tournament, call the tournament director, talk to the tournament director before weigh-in, before you come in, and tell them. I mean, just be honest. If you get DQ'd, you get DQ'd.
Yeah, I was that.
But do it honestly. Don't try to scam the system. If you're wrong, you were wrong. If you get DQ'd, learn from it.
It's way worse to try to lie about it and like say you get away with it, but then someone catches you like further down the road. Like that messes everything up. Like we
yeah.
could talk about the guys that were putting weights in fishes, like
Yeah.
right? They've been, you know what I mean. So that stuff catches up to you eventually, and it's way worse.
We can talk about guys in the opens that have people hole sitting for them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of goes back to what you're saying, like that from perspective outside of being a professional, from the outside looking in, it almost sounds like that situation could have not been avoided, but the DQ could have possibly been avoided with a report of the situation
Yes.
from one side of the party. You know what I mean?
If it had been reported by both sides, then
Right.
probably from what the angler says, if he had reported it, he wouldn't have been DQ'd. However, the reason he was DQ'd was for
Keeping his mouth shut.
not for keeping his mouth shut. He was DQ'd for a rules violation for
Right.
interfering with another competitor. And whether or not, and again, we'll never know all the facts around the situation.
We're not picking sides either.
We're not picking sides. The facts are the guy that harassed the other angler was a homeowner that angler A was staying with. So like they obviously knew each other. That guy may have done it on his own volition. Maybe he was just out spectating. Benefit of the doubt. He's out spectating. Guy pulls up. He thinks he's too close to his buddy, so he goes over and gives him a raft of shit.
Right.
And if that's the situation, then I feel bad for the guy who got DQ'd because he didn't have any control over that, but he could have said something.
Right. He's like, if you see anybody over here, get him away.
Well, he could have said something at the time, like if he wasn't in on it. I'm just saying. I'm not saying he did or didn't. It just looks bad that he didn't say anything while it was happening.
Right. Yeah.
Knowing that he knows that guy, that it looked bad. But again, we don't have all the facts. The facts are, guy was being harassed. Guy got DQ'd. It's really throwing me off when you play with those volumes because it changes in my headphones. So the guy got DQ'd. You know, hopefully he learns from the situation, and you know he moves on, and you know he evaluates who his friends are.
Right.
That's the thing that you know gets me is like he came out with this. I would have, if that happened to me, I would have came out and said, "Yep, that guy's an asshole. I'm never talking to him again." But you know, he came out with this thing like, "Oh, well, I didn't do this," and it was like, just fess up to it.
Yeah.
Like, just fess up to it and move on. You know, like, hey, my buddy was out here with me. He harassed the guy. I'm sorry. Like, I think that saying that would have went a whole lot farther than what he actually said.
Maybe
Absolutely.
hoping that it didn't get brought to attention or something.
You know, he had this whole release about not wanting to taint the sport and this and that. Like, I think it would have looked a lot better if he just said, "Hey, you know, I was staying with this guy. The guy was out fishing while watching me. He harassed. Guy pulled up close by. He harassed him. End of story."
Just
You know?
completely uncalled for. And
Oh yeah.
I think it was very strange. Like, the thing that's really a red flag to me is the dude that was doing all the screaming is not a competitor.
Well, right. He's a friend of the guy who was fishing there.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's what it's just kind of like, what?
I mean, he could have been like spectating. Spectating's fine. Like, and the guy lives on the lake, so
Yeah.
he could have been out watching his. Again, benefit of the doubt, he could have been out watching his
Yep.
buddy. Not hole sitting, which is what the accusation was. He could have just been out watching his buddy. Yes, he did, Greg. So the guy that did all of the yelling in that video is actually a lawyer.
Really?
And he is everybody who has posted the video of him yelling at Hugh Consuelo. I'll throw some names out there. Hugh Consuelo was the other competitor, the
other
one that got
angler.
harassed.
Yeah.
Who is kind of a friend of a friend. I don't know him, but a friend of mine knows him. So that guy is a lawyer, and he has threatened to sue everyone who's posted that video.
I walked into this conversation. halfway
That's
through
very
it.
bold.
Yes.
I'm going to go share that video right now.
What are we talking about?
So the guy, did you see the video for that happened at the Opens on
No.
Eufaula?
No.
So, okay. So to play the story out for anybody who doesn't know, because I figured just everyone knew by now. You had a competitor that was fishing, and another competitor pulled up into the same area. And then this other seemingly random boat pulls over to that other competitor and starts yelling at him for pulling in on this other guy, saying, I don't even know that guy, but that's messed up, and lied about his name. He said, I'm somebody else. Ryan Ingram is who he said he was. It was not Ryan Ingram. Do not, for anybody watching, don't say that that's who it was. The guy's name is Joe something. I don't remember his name. But so he starts yelling at him and says, I'm going to drive circles around you all day if you don't leave, yada, yada, yada. And so this guy's a lawyer that was doing all this yelling. And he has sent messages to everyone who's posted this video threatening to sue them for like defamation because of this video. Like, it's not defamation. You're in the video.
Yeah.
Didn't he also join a podcast that would basically speak openly to what
No,
he said or did?
he posted a video himself of saying this is the messed up part. He posted a video himself saying that that he did what he did for some blah blah blah. He's big bullshitter. And I'm a lawyer, and anybody who tries to post this video or say anything about me, I'm suing them. Like, he went off on this other video, and it was crazy. And I think that video he ended up taking that down. But the worst part, what I really dislike, and the first thing that I noticed when I saw this video, is he has Aaron Martin's old boat, and it's still wrapped.
Oh.
It's still got Aaron Martin's wrap on it, and that really hurt.
That kind of hits home a little bit.
Because Aaron was like one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I got to meet Aaron one time, one of the nicest people that I've ever met, and for him to just be out there acting like that and doing something like that in Aaron's boat, that hurt.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like he's a very good lawyer. So.
He's one of those small town lawyers that thinks that he can't be touched. Whatever, he's an asshole.
That guy's a dick. I'm gonna
Yes.
say it out loud.
Yes.
I'm not supposed to swear.
He
but I'm
messaged
gonna say
he
it.
messaged Luke Duncan. He messaged Luke Duncan after Luke Duncan called him an asshole on his podcast. He messaged Luke Duncan and said some shit, and Luke Duncan sent him a message back and was like, "Yep, you're an asshole," and called him Ryan, which was the name he used in the video, the fake name he used. He was like, "Why don't you just shut up, Ryan?" It's pretty hilarious. Yeah, that's him. But yeah, it's really just a really bad situation all around. And again, I don't know the level of involvement of the kid who did it, or the kid who got disqualified. I like to, I'm a pretty level-headed person, and I usually give people the benefit of the doubt. And if he didn't, if that guy was just out there spectating and did that shit on his own volition, that's messed up.
Yeah.
You didn't think for a second what it was going to do to that kid. I mean, that kid's young. He's young, real young, 24.
Yeah. He's got a whole career ahead of himself.
Right. And he's a good
fish.
fish. He's a good fisherman.
Right.
We know, Greg. I'm trying not to mention any names. Except for Asshole Joe. We can mention his name because I just want to see one of his cease and desist letters.
Yeah, it's
we would frame that.
I'm trying to go find that right now and share it, so that way I can
If we
get
can
one
get-
of those letters and frame it on the back wall behind us.
If we can get a cease and desist from him, we will frame it and put it back
I would
here.
love to do that. It'll be front and center,
That'd be great.
right there. We are being sued because this guy is a d-hole. But,
And again, not taking it. I mean, I'm not passing any judgment on Tucker. I'm just saying that guy in that other boat, he's an asshole.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's uncalled for. Period. In any fishing situation, I don't really care if it's in the major leagues or if it's in.
It's one thing if
you're
it's from
fishing if you're fishing a fucking.
It's one thing if it's from
You're fishing a pond.
It's one thing if it's from a competitor to a competitor. If you pull up, if I'm fishing a tournament and you pull up right next to me and start fishing the same 10-foot stretch of grass
Right.
that I'm fishing, I'm probably going to have a few choice words for you.
Rightfully so.
And you're probably going to get a 3/4 ounce rattle trap thrown at your head, which I have been known to do.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
I mean,
I may have put a 3/4 ounce rattle trap into somebody's cowling on the Potomac one day.
they just left.
They did. It was funny.
I've heard the story.
It was great.
It's a good story. Fantastic story. It's been told on the podcast before.
It has. And it's sometimes, I know, we talked about this early in the week and maybe, talking about, just etiquette in general.
That'll be next week's episode.
So-
Boat ramp etiquette for all of
Well,
you
not boat ramp etiquette.
pleasure boaters. That
I'm
need to
talking
learn.
about fishing etiquette. And just don't pull up on somebody.
No.
If you're a cast away from somebody, you're too close. A friend of mine was pre-fishing for a Toyota Series on Potomac last year, and his friend, they were pre-fishing over in Belmont, and him and his buddy were fishing close by. They're pre-fishing together, and this guy was just going from group to group, wherever there was a group of people fishing, and just going right into the middle of them fishing. So they pulled up into theirs, and he was throwing a Senko in the grass. And the guy, he pulls up next to him, and the guy just takes the Senko and throws it right on the guy's deck. And the guy looks at him and goes, "What the hell is that for?" And he's like, "That means you're too fucking close." Apologize for the language. That was a direct quote.
Right? It doesn't count.
You gotta help me so I can time it. That was too close.
Yeah, right.
I mean, yeah, what's to be said about fishing on the flats then, right? And you pull up there all the time up in Havre Grace, and there's guys literally fishing right on top of each other.
So there are guys, and
30 boats.
there are guys that fish tournaments up there that won't even pre-fish and will just look for the group of boats.
Yeah.
and I know it happens, and they can say that it doesn't. GDP will sit his boat down on your front deck. Yeah, I can. I don't. I've never had a bad experience with Greg. I've actually had nothing but good experience with Greg on the water, so I can't say anything about him. But there are plenty of other people that I've had bad experiences with that we know, and yeah, there's no respect. And one of the things that it's why I love fishing on the shore so much. And I don't know if you noticed this while you were on the Potomac. Like if somebody's running by, like and they like looks like they're going to fish like an area you're fishing, and they see you there, they just go to
every time that happened, they would just go.
They just go.
Yeah.
I feel like
just keep
I
going.
feel
They
like
go
that
down to the
happens-
next stretch of wood.
Yeah.
I feel
On
like
the
that
flats,
happens
like they'll just
more.
pull up right next to you.
Oh yeah.
It's weird to say this because the flats is such a large body of water too, but I feel like that happens on these larger bodies of water when it's just like, oh, well, somebody's where I wanted to fish. I can go to another spot. In the same time, the flats is a massive body of water that you can fish, but it's like the flats is a Walmart parking lot at any given time throughout the season. It's as big as it
there's
is.
certain times of the year.
Yeah, as
where it
big
gets
as
bad.
it is, it's a parking lot. It's like the pond, but way bigger.
Yeah, so, and again, I think that goes more to the people who don't pre-fish, and they just look for the boats.
Right.
You know, I always try, like, I know where everybody, there's certain areas on the flats that everybody goes because they know, like, you know, that's a hot spot,
Yeah.
right? So, I spend my time trying to find other areas that are less occupied.
Right. Like, why would you go to where there's
10,000
boats?
acres.
Like,
There's 10,000
like-
acres of grass out there.
Right.
And there aren't all the fish aren't in one area. I promise. You know, I was one spring. It was a May tour. It was a Chester County tournament. I was fishing with Rob Steiner. Rob was on the back of my boat, and we're fishing a patch of milfoil the size of this room, like literally the size of this room. We're power poled down over here, fishing into this little tiny patch of milfoil that was out there. There wasn't a lot of grass up. This dude like comes around behind me, goes around this way, comes around. When he gets like 90 degrees from me, starts casting into the fucking patch of grass. Oh, I did it again. Damn it.
Oh, you just did it again.
So he starts casting in the patch of grass right in front of my boat.
Yeah, it blurs it out on the freaking thing down here.
That's funny. So, like, obviously, I just looked over at him and went, "You want to just fish off my boat?"
Yeah, I'm at that point.
Hop on.
And he goes, "He's what? We're just going by." I'm like, well, don't effing cast.
Me and Tony were pre-fishing for one of Tony's tournaments last year. I wasn't
Oh,
part of it, and we
He
had a
doesn't-
guy roll up on us and fish the same
He
20
doesn't
by
know any
20
better.
feet patch of
you
grass.
should have said something to him. He doesn't know anything.
I did. I yelled. I was like, "Can we help you?" And just blatant ignorance, just flip right back in. I mean, it just like it was what it was, but it was just very annoying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it is super annoying. So especially when it's one thing if it's in practice. Like if it's in practice, like I'll just leave.
Yeah.
Tony kept way cooler than I did, and it wasn't even for my tournament. It was for Tony's.
In a tournament, I get hot.
It was pre-fishing.
Pre-fishing, like yeah, if I'm pre-fishing, I'll just leave and go somewhere else. Because
I'm pretty sure Tony did
I don't
well
want to
in
see
that
that. I don't
tournament,
want
too.
that person to see me actually catching fish there.
Right.
So
Oh,
as
it
much
was
as
too
I want,
late for that.
yeah. So I'll just leave. You know, as soon as they pull in, like I'll just leave. If I was, you know, if I had gotten some bites or something like that, I'll just leave. But I try to stay away from the crowds. I mean, I'll fish in the crowds if I know there's, you know, certain times of the year you'll get a large portion of fish that spawn in certain areas, and there will be a lot of boats on the flats.
Yeah.
But even then, I try to. I don't try to get in the middle of them. You know, I like to try. You know, I'll try to stay a cast away from everyone. You know, if I'm a cast away, I try to stay two. Like if I would like to be as far away from another boat that if they cast as far as I can and I cast as far as I can, our baits will maybe just meet.
Right.
But a lot of other people don't have that same consideration, and it's a shame. You know, for the most part, I'm the nice. You know, if you're nice and polite to me, like I'm the nicest guy on the water. But if you want to be a jerk, I'm going to give it right back to you. I had a guy in the Northeast one time that I was casting to these rocks, and he was trying so hard to get around me to go down this bank that as I'm going toward these rocks, he's just kind of going out to try to go around me. Almost ran his boat up on the rocks. And the worst part about it was he never when he pulled up, all he had to do when he was coming in is stop and say, "Hey, do you mind if I fish around you?"
Right.
And I would have let
It's
him
as
go.
easy as that.
I was fishing a club tournament. I didn't care. I mean, I had 12 pounds. I had enough to win the year. I didn't care. I wasn't fishing for money. I knew he was fishing a money tournament. All
it
he had to
takes
do
is
was say something.
consideration.
Exactly.
Right. That's all it
Just
takes.
a little bit of consideration.
I mean, when you sit there and act like an ignorant face, I just don't. I'm totally on board with freaking out on people.
Yeah.
I mean, not freaking out on people, but just voicing something, being like, "Hey, like, what you're doing is a little over the line."
Right. And again,
In any situation.
respect goes both ways. If somebody pulls up, just say, or if you pull up on somebody, "Hey, do you mind if I fish here near you?" And if they say no, that's all right, and leave. If they say yes, then give them a little bit of space,
Right.
and and fish there. If they say no,
I can't
it
say
is what it is. Go and
yeah,
leave.
I can't say I've had a terrible experience ever, where if you're pulling up on the same spot as someone else is coming up on, or you're trying to go around them, and as long as you ask, right? I've never had a bad experience where someone's like flipping on you. It's just talk to that person. If you want to go around, ask them, and then they'll say, "Hey, let's," that's fine.
Stop changing it.
It's like whacking out Paul, but I'm like messing with the sound levels as Paul
So,
and Skylar are talking.
I have
Paul,
no-
Every
I'm
time
not
I like, I adjust so like when somebody's talking, like Paul's talking on the blue microphone over here. You can see the little blue cap here. Skylar's got green. And on my settings, whoever's talking, I can lower the mic volume so that there might not be as much echo. We don't even know if there's going to be echo.
They already told
because
us there's no echo.
there isn't it. I didn't even see that. There is no echo.
Yeah.
Okay,
At the,
well,
at the
so
beginning,
I'm
Dan
literally
Vaughn
sitting here
told
like
us.
I'm like messing with the volumes and shit, and I'm like, oh, maybe we can make this a little bit better.
So I want Tom Over says that he had to push a guy's boat off from hitting his motor while he was perch fishing. That actually makes me feel a little bit better that it's not just bass fishermen.
You can almost guarantee that was in that freaking cluster.
Cluster. Just cluster.
It was in that
cluster.
It was in the cluster of boats on the Susky, probably jigging under the bridge.
Martin said the bleep button is killing his earbuds. Just spam it right now.
Turn the volume down on the sounds of them. Wow, that's still really loud.
Still loud.
Martin's ears are probably bleeding.
Sorry, Martin.
So it was probably out down below the bridge because there was a pile of boats out there one day.
Yeah, Tom says no way, not the perch hole. not trying to have 30 boats packed into a freaking 50 square foot area.
I will tell you, I give a lot of credit to these guys that can go out there and catch those perch, because I can find them, and I found a giant school of perch.
Tracking them on 2D is hard.
Well,
You're
I was
just
live scoping
floating
them.
there.
I was live scoping them, so.
Oh my god.
But just finding them. Well, I mean, I had a school that was. There was probably 200 in the school, and could not get a bite. I mean, we couldn't even get a bite from these. Maybe like I don't know a lot about perch fishing. Like I just went out and I started scanning, and I found them on 2D. Turned around, found them on live scope, and sat on spot lock and just tried to catch them. But I mean, they were in like 60 feet of water.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, and there was a pile of them there.
I've gone out there one time with Gromster and just sat there and literally just like you try to position yourself over the school of perch, and then you just like vertically drop and just
And that's all we were doing.
I've caught one perch during a tournament, and like not even knowing that anything was around. Right, I was just like pitching into some wood or whatever, and I got hit, and I was using a black and blue jig with a trailer. So I mean that's like a pretty meaty bait, and hooked into it. I thought I just had like a small bass, and it was just a fat perch, and I was like, "There's no way that just happened." I was
Dude,
like, "I didn't even know this was possible."
some of the crappie that I see Josh Jones catch on his Facebook and
Oh, my
Instagram is like,
God.
what the
He got a 3.2.
I can't even imagine
I
Like,
mean,
if there was crappie in our area that were 3 pounds, like I would probably be a crappie fisherman. Like,
That's nuts.
So they-
like that's good fishing.
they had
Yeah.
I saw there was a crappie tournament last year, and the winners, I want to say that it was a 6-fish limit, and their 6-fish limit went like 19 pounds or something. They had over a 3-pound average
That's
in this tournament
nuts.
and that was and it was a
Crappie.
multi-day tournament, and they were consistent all 3 days or both days.
I didn't even know they got that big. That's crazy.
That's-
I think what's
that's
the
a south-
record?
that's
What's
a
the
down south
record
thing.
crappie?
4 something.
Is it?
that is
Yeah.
nuts, dude.
I think the Maryland record's over 3 pounds.
At that point, is it even considered pan fishing anymore?
The world record crappie is 21 inches long, 5 pounds 3 ounces.
That's crazy.
A 5 pound 3 ounce crappie.
See what the Maryland
That's
record
mind blowing.
is. 4 pounds.
What?
That's got to
Does
be
it
in a
say
pond,
where?
dude.
Probably came out of Liberty or something.
Yeah. Oh,
Let me see.
what? A 4-pound crappie?
Invasive, non-tidal. Crappie, 4.4 pounds, caught from a farm pond. Let's see what the.
Yeah, see, the farm pond
Chesapeake
doesn't do
record.
it for me. It's like you just been growing them, you know what I mean? They're probably fed.
So there was a 4-pound crappie. This is the Chesapeake division, caught out of Dundee.
What?
What?
Yeah, 4 pound,
You're
4
not
pounds.
allowed
even.
to say what I was going to say.
I did.
There's a picture of it.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big crappie.
That is a big crappie.
That's a 4-pound crappie. Caught it at Dundee.
Incredible.
Yeah, you can. I mean, crappie get big. There's some giant crappie in Conowingo.
It was like Logan,
I mean,
Logan Crewman
Giant crappie.
caught that. What was that? Like a 40
54 pound carp.
54 pound
Yeah,
carp.
that's nuts.
That's wild.
Oh.
Apparently, it freaking ate in the mouth too.
My buddy Mark, we were up on Conowingo one day, just messing around in the springtime, and he caught it. He's like 50 yards down the bank from me, and he caught the biggest crappie I've ever seen. Like he pulled this thing, like he's holding this thing like this. I mean, it was like bigger than a dinner plate.
I remember when
There's giant crappie up there.
I remember when Phoebe caught, like, it was probably a 10 or a 12-inch crappie back in the Forbidden Zone, and that was the biggest crappie I've ever seen.
My buddy caught a 14-inch crappie back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 14 inch is a pretty big crappie.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The only other crazy,
Caught it on a crankbait.
the only other crazy thing that I've caught that like should not have been eating what it ate was a carp in tidings, and it was with Tony actually. I think we were just out there messing around, and
Chatterbait,
no, a rattle trap.
rattle trap. Yeah, I've caught him on a rattle trap.
And I mean, like he ate it. Like it wasn't like side hook or anything. I was just like, I didn't know this happened, but it was like
Was it a
thick.
finesse rattle trap? Or
No,
was it
just a
or was it
regular
full-size
size. I think it was like a
rattle
red rattle trap.
I've caught him on rattle trap, striper fishing in the bush.
trap? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Wait, in the mouth. I've caught two of them in the mouth on rattle traps. I caught one a couple weeks ago on a Ned rig. Fishing in Susquehanna.
I saw that. What was
Yeah,
it? It was
14 pounds.
14.
Damn.
It's pretty
On-
stout.
6 pound on 6 pound leader.
Yeah, on the spinning rod. It
On the
was
old
like
spinner rod. It was
It
fun.
was like hauling in an army tank on the spinning
Yeah,
rod.
it was crazy. So like I've snagged a lot of carp, and when
Yeah.
you snag a carp, like they just like boom. I mean, just
And it feels like it's like 30 pounds.
yeah. I mean,
on there.
and they
Yeah.
and they just run. I mean, they're
Mhm.
super strong. Like I haven't hooked one in the mouth in a long time, but I'm like it would like run down and then just sit there. You know, and just be like dead weight, and then you'd work it up, and then it just goes
right back
right down to the bottom.
Yeah.
It never like made like a long run.
I have video of Scuba Steve. Speaking of which, I got to bring up Scuba Steve here in a minute. I have video of Scuba Steve over the summer hooking up on something, and I must have videotaped him.
Tony Schultz is throwing out a bass and beer tournament.
Yeah, I must have videotaped him fighting this fish for like 10 minutes back in the Forbidden Zone. And we're like driving around, like trying to catch this fish or whatever it is with the trolling motor. And we get over to this one spot where it's vertical underneath the boat in like 10 feet. And he could not get it to move. I think it was a giant catfish.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It was probably carp.
it was a giant catfish or a giant carp, and no matter what Steve did, could not get this thing to come out of the hole that it was in, or
There's a lot.
Off
I mean,
the
there's
bottom.
a lot of big carp back there. So I would
and,
imagine.
I
it's
mean,
probably a
it
carp.
was just like nothing he could do to get this thing. Nothing. It was wild, but yeah, it broke off. We never did see what it was.
Yeah, I've had that. My buddy he hooked a giant catfish out past the bridge. We were
yeah.
we were out striper fishing one time, and he hooked just a giant catfish out there. And we
Past the
call it
bridge.
yeah outside the bridge,
That's the zone that I'm.
the unfamiliar zone.
The unfamiliar zone. Yeah.
It's not the
However,
forbidden zone,
it's
the
like,
unfamiliar zone.
dude, there's a lot of gold over there. Just gotta find it.
There is. I was talking to somebody at the flea market. Can't remember who I was talking to. But we were talking about the gunpowder, and like I've caught. I mean, if you put the time in to figure out where they are, I've caught bass literally everywhere in the gunpowder, from the mouth of the gunpowder out by Carroll Island, all the way back into Bird River. If you put the time in to find them, you can catch fish all over the place in the gunpowder.
Right.
Most people just go to the high concentration. The high concentration that's inside.
It's like
the
what you're
ridge,
familiar with, right? Like you know that they're going to be
Yeah.
there, so you go
where they heard everybody else caught them.
Right.
Yeah, because nobody can go out and find their own fish.
That's right.
That's another thing, though. It's hard to break away from that. It's hard to break away from your pattern or where you've heard fish were caught, as opposed to like going out and putting in the time to find new spots. Like it is a hard cycle to break, I think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is people are. I was talking to my buddy Frank about this the other night. I think a lot of people are just they're afraid to go out and blank,
Yeah.
and you can't be afraid to go out and blank. Like if you want to become a better fisherman, you can't be afraid to go out and try new things, and figure something out. My golden rule whenever I go out fun fishing is to fish one place that I've never fished before.
Because no one wants to come in and say, like you said, no one wants to come in and tell their buddies that they blanked. Like, oh, how'd you do yesterday? Oh, I didn't catch anything. But like, so what?
But that's what I tell everybody anyway.
Right.
I could have whacked like 30 pounds and I still
Right.
still tell them I didn't catch it.
Yep.
One of those guys.
Like absolutely.
Sandbagging.
Yeah.
Especially if I got a tournament coming up.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
But yeah, you have to go out. I mean, you have to be willing to try new things, try new techniques, try new spots. You can't just go to the same exact spot every time. I have a guy in my club who does this all the time, and he will hit places that are specific because he caught a 5-pounder there 8 years ago. It's like, well, why did you catch that 5-pounder there 8 years ago? That's what you have to ask yourself. Why was that fish there? Was it was it because the bait was in there? Was it the water cooler? Were they spawning? You have to understand the fish movement to be able to understand why that fish was there and why a fish might be there again.
Right. It's no condition is ever the exact same. Like, yeah, it just is what it is, right?
It's
you can
gonna be-
fish
it might
one
be
day,
similar.
the next day could be not like when I say totally different, right? Like water temp could drop or rise a couple degrees, and that makes a world of difference.
I also heard the Forbidden Zone was a parking lot today.
Really?
Yeah. No.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not even gonna lie, I'm lost on the whole
Yeah.
Forbidden Zone thing.
Oh, that's
That's
the
the
area in the gunpowder that we don't tell anybody what the actual name of it is because we don't want any more people to go back there.
Oh, got it.
Even though every single person in the state of Maryland and Pennsylvania knows about it.
Yeah, because it's been on like 15 YouTube videos.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
At this point, is it really even?
Yeah, it's the pond.
It's the
It's the
But I like Forbidden Zone.
But
better.
it's the
That's a better
Forbidden
name, I
Zone
think.
just because that's just the original name on the podcast,
Yep.
on the live stream. It's the Forbidden Zone.
That's what I figured it was, but I was like, I don't know if we're doing the
Yeah,
same
that's
thing.
the Forbidden Zone.
Yeah,
but
Nate,
I mean, like, the Forbidden Zone's not so forbidden.
Yeah,
Sounds
Nate,
cool, though.
Nate told me there was a bunch of boats back there today.
Yeah. I saw old Lou was back there catching some fish today.
When isn't he?
Well, he was back. I know he took his sons out for a couple hours, and I saw him. It looked like he caught like a
That's
2.5
decent.
or
Yeah, it looked like
a
a
couple,
decent-
2.5 or
3
3-pounders. That was, I was sitting there, I was thinking about it. I was like, the fish are moving. I knew exactly where he was sitting from the photo. He doesn't hide that.
It feels like I haven't fished in a year. Like that's what it feels like to me. Like I need
It's only been
You
like
still fish?
a boat. That's what I need.
You better get that kitchen done.
I mean,
Dude.
I'll buy it. I'm thinking about buying a new boat. So
I wish I could.
you know, we talked about this a little bit.
just put yourself into debt. It's fine.
I'm already in that.
So I mean, me too. I'm just gonna put myself into more debt.
We were talking about this a little bit earlier. We were actually really surprised that, or Skylar said he was surprised that Tony didn't pull the trigger and buy a new rig.
Tony, why is that surprising?
No,
Tony's so
no.
cheap.
Okay, but-
I'm not surprised. It was just for me, if I'm gonna put in a large amount of money into a boat, well, first off, what I told Chad was Tony's hull is in good condition.
There's
I think
nothing
if
wrong
he
with
like
Tony's hull.
you know besides cosmetic, his hull's in great great condition. So I understand why he's doing what he's doing.
It just needs buffed up.
Right. To me, I feel like if I'm going to put a lot of money into something, why not have it be newer? I didn't even say brand new. I would say newer. You know what I mean? But I can also understand his perspective. That's why it wasn't like, oh, how could he? But it was just like,
I mean,
I can see both.
If you spend,
Well, he went back and forth
Yeah.
on the subject for
say
a
you
while.
spend 10 grand, 15 grand
Right.
on he's got a good haul. He's got a newer motor.
It's a 2007.
Right. It's a newer motor. It doesn't have a lot of hours on it.
Is that considered newer?
It's newer than his boat.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, and it doesn't have a lot of hours on it. So, why buy a new boat? You know, he could spend $15,000, or he can spend $75,000 to $80,000.
You know,
That's not. Yeah,
I mean,
that was my other
in,
point.
In
though.
reality, minus like if you're gonna, not even talking about poles and jack plates and all that stuff, but like just doing the carpet and buffing out the
Oxidation.
console,
Yeah, get
the
the
oxidation,
oxidation,
changing the gauges in the console and stuff like that. New seats in the boat, and you know, baby's looking brand new. Not to mention, Tony's also going to have freaking Raptors put on there. I'm pretty sure he put a 8-inch or a 10-inch hydraulic jack plate on it, and he did not upgrade the trolling motor, but he did put
He
Garmin
refuses.
Live Scope.
He refuses to upgrade the trolling motor.
He don't. His trolling motor works good. However, I will say, same situation with him and your boat currently is the trolling motor for both of your boats are just turds. You
What?
guys need 112-pound thrust trolling motors.
Oh, mine's fine for my boat.
Your boat is very slow on the trolling motor.
It's not that much slower than most bass boats.
How far do you run your power up?
I mean, on a normal day, like when I'm normal
Yeah.
fishing, like 4,
4 or 5?
4, usually
I
4.
would also say this.
not
I
that
was
bad.
out so last season, like towards the ends of last season, one of the co-anglers in the club, he had a boat and he had just gotten a brand new Ghost trolling motor for it, and I think it was like an 18-foot boat, but I could honestly say like I did not feel like that much of a difference. I think he had like 80-pound thrust on there, and
So he's running a 24 volt.
yeah,
Yeah.
The difference between what and what, though?
Well,
Well,
what
you
I'm saying is
cover-
like being on Tony's boat and feeling his trolling motor, like it like I will say this, like his felt like it went faster than the other guy's boat I was on with the brand new Ghost. I would assume that they're the same.
Similar.
I'm pretty sure they're the
Yeah.
same, like pound thrust and everything like that. But it felt like with the Ghost, it was not moving fast whatsoever, and we weren't even fighting any current, and that kind of threw me off. I was like, what's the benefit? Like I get like he had like live scope and stuff like that, so that was cool. I had never seen that before.
Live scope's amazing.
Right, and that was the first time I'd ever seen it up close and personal, and that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. But I honestly did not feel like it made a difference in moving the boat any faster.
See, I've always been I really always oversize your trolling motor. I think there's 2 huge key factors in a boat and their mobility. Number 1, always maximize the horsepower on your boat.
Why not? Yeah.
And number 2, oversize your trolling motor. If your trolling motor is actually calling for it needs 24 80-pound because it's a 20-foot bass boat, then I like to go the next step up. I like to go, okay, if it calls for an 80-pound thrust, I would go to a 112.
Well, sometimes, like in my situation, I can't.
because of the battery
Because I can't-
situation, because you have to go to a 36 volt, and I completely understand that.
I can't fit the
I'm
extra
coming from a John boat perspective. In my John boat, I had a 12 volt. No, actually, it wasn't 12 volt. It's always been a 24 volt system, but it was a 60-pound thrust on my John boat originally, which actually ripped it around quite well. And then after changing it and going to the Tarova, I decided to go up to the 80-pound. And what that did is it allows me to use a lower amp hour battery because it's less weight and less amp draw on the motor to move the boat. I can run the boat at a way lower setting and move, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The hell was that?
It's your dog.
I did. I saw an interesting article the other day about trolling motor batteries, and if you properly match your trolling motor to your boat, it doesn't matter if you have a 12-foot John boat or a 21-foot bass boat. If your motor is properly matched, they'll run the same speed. So a 12-foot John boat may need like a 50-pound thrust, and that 50-pound thrust will push your John boat, say 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour. But then on your 21-foot bass boat, your 112 will push that bass boat 4 miles an hour. So it's very, like you said, it's very important to match your trolling motor to your boat. So you don't want to, if I had Kevin's boat, he said he took the 36 volt off and put a 24 volt. He's insane. There's no way that I wouldn't have a 36 volt on his boat. I would not run a 24 volt trolling motor on anything bigger than my boat.
Your boat's 19 feet,
18 and a half.
fiberglass.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
think,
like,
I
Kevin-
think that
Kevin-
you're maxing out an 80-pound thrust trolling motor, in my opinion.
I mean, to be fair, if you go back in time, I mean, people were running an 80-pound thrust, 78-pound thrust motor guides on 20-foot boats. It's all in, it's all in how you fish and what you need out of it. But again, if I would definitely have a 36 volt trolling motor in Kevin's boat for sure. I wouldn't run an 80 in anything bigger than my boat.
Kevin's boat is a 20-foot boat, or 19 something, close to 20.
19 and a half.
19 and a half. And then he's running the 24 volt system. I didn't think, I guess it all depends on layout, but like
No, Kevin, we just fish more than you.
Kevin's boat, and this is no offense to Kevin, Kevin's boat seemed a little bit smaller in the front deck, in my opinion, than say my Ranger, which is 19 foot something. It was more narrow, it felt like. And I don't know, overall,
It's just the way. It's because it's an older boat. So newer boats, the deck designs have gotten a lot better.
I just felt like, honestly, it could have gone, like the 24 volt probably works okay with his, because I felt like the way the hull was designed, it kind of cuts a little bit
Do you
better,
have
if
dual
you know
console?
what I'm saying.
Do you have
Like,
dual console? Do you have dual console?
I
or
do
something?
have dual console.
I was gonna say Kevin just mentioned that. I don't know if that was a difference or not.
Dual console also.
Tony, that's
gonna slow things
so
down
that's
too.
exactly why Chad's comment is very important. Overpowering your boat, the trolling motor for your boat. You want to be prepared for anything that you're going to encounter. So, like if I'm fishing Conowingo, like I have some issues with my 80 on Conowingo. If I get
that
up into
stuff rips. The wind rips. The current rips. Like
But I would have a lot less issue if I had a 112.
I mean, well, yeah, of course. I get that, but it's
Even on a bigger boat, like a 112 on, my buddy's 21-foot boat that I fish out of all the time, he has a way less problem in current than I do. Even though it's a bigger, heavier boat, and
See, but-
that 30 pound more thrust is such a huge advantage.
Tony doesn't even have an 80. He's got a 70.
Right.
But the thing is that 70 is for, you're running your trolling motor on a windy day. You're running your trolling motor on 7 power, 8 power. You're drawing your batteries down way faster because your trolling motor has to work a lot harder
Ain't got to worry
to
about that.
position your boat. Not with lithiums.
I did run them down to on the tournament me and Frank fished in December on Conowingo. I ran those lithiums down to 20%.
And they were still trucking, weren't they?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was getting.
You were getting there.
I was like, this is getting kind of close. I mean, that was an 8-hour
Are you
tournament.
running 250s?
I'm running 200s.
You're running 200s.
Yeah, and I took them down to 20%. Now, keep in mind, this is like 30-mile-an-hour wind. We spend most of the
3
day in
footers.
the discharge. We spend most of the day in the discharge in super heavy current. That's where we spent the majority of our time. So there's like 20-mile-an-hour wind. So it's very heavy current. It's that calls me to draw them down. Prior to that, I never got them down till I had never had them below 50%.
And I get, like, if you're going to fish Conowingo all the time, Conowingo is typically, right, very windy.
Well,
I think we can all agree
that's-
that. But, like, if you're going to fish that all the time, yeah, upsize. But if you're fishing all over the place, then I don't see the point, because in a lot of places, like, I feel like Tony's trolling motor rips. Like, I feel like we're moving.
But fishing all over the place, like I can tell you, like that 70 on the chop tank. If you're up there by Greensboro when the tide's going out after a flood tide, that 70 ain't doing nothing. Like you're not making it against the current. You're going backwards.
Overpower your trolling motor.
It's
That's the way that I feel about
But how
it.
often
And
are we
there's a
fishing
lot
the
of
chop
guys who are like, oh, I can't go to the 36
well
volt
for
system.
somebody like I fish a lot. I fish the chop tank a lot. I fish. I'm planning on going to New York more. Fishing the St. Lawrence more.
And that right there,
So
obviously.
there's things that
Current.
that make me that I fish a lot of current,
Right, so it all depends on what type of fishing you're doing, right? So and
especially in tidal water. I mean, if you're fishing on the shore a lot, the current rips on those shore rivers.
right.
So it's you get a little wind blowing with that. You get a little
It's
wind
tough.
blowing with that tide.
Yeah, it's
it's
tough.
gonna blow. It's that current moves hard. So, like Chad said, overpower your trolling motor.
I
If
think
you
it's
can,
worth it.
if
to
you
do
can,
so.
if you have the room for batteries, especially now that you have lithiums, spend the money for lithiums, and just they're not gonna you're gonna have less weight in your boat with a 36 volt than a 24 volt with lead acid batteries.
Right.
The lithium may be more expensive at the same time. You're going to save yourself a lot of room in the back of your boat too. There's a lot of I can't go to a 36 volt because I can't fit three batteries in the back of my boat. Well, if you save up the money and you go to lithium, you'll save a substantial amount of room in the back of your boat, depending on batteries. The batteries that I went to were a lot smaller.
I would say
and a lot later.
For the fishing that I do and fishing in a lot of heavy current, and as much as I'm on the trolling motor, there's no way that I would go with the 50 amp hour ever.
Yeah.
I
For
would
your
have to go with the
situation.
100s. And the 100s
You're
are the
also
same.
on almost a 20-foot boat, 19.5-foot boat.
Right. And
For
the
my
100
John boat, that was different.
Oh yeah, and the 100 amp hours are the same size as Group 27 batteries, so you don't really
Yeah.
save any room going with those. So if you have the room, is it expensive? Yes. I mean, I spent $1,400 on my batteries,
It's totally worth it.
but
It's a
I've also
trade-off.
Totally
It's a
worth it.
trade-off.
I've never had my batteries die either.
Right.
And I've definitely had my batteries die. The first time I had my AGMs die was on the chop tank. Again, fishing that heavy current because the current, the tide was ripping out, and I cut my pre-fishing day. In a tournament, do you need lithiums? Probably not. But in my pre-fishing, I cut my it's the middle of the summer, it doesn't get dark till 9 o'clock. I had to stop pre-fishing at like 3:30 because my batteries were dead.
Gotcha.
I had another 4 or 5 hours of pre-fishing that I could have done. If I had lithiums then,
It's a different story.
it's just more, there's more time I can spend out on the water.
The very next how-to video, or not a how-to video, but the very next, not live video, but edited video that I put together is going to be lithium batteries versus lead acid batteries. And I am just going to do a comparison video of the differences between lead acid and lithium and the positives and the negatives and in my opinion, personally, why
if it's time for you to upgrade your batteries, that you should
You
go
know-
to lithium.
I would like you to do in that. Take a map out the amp draw of a
Yes.
trolling motor on different speeds and how long a battery will last.
Yes, that was
That
my,
would-
my full intention was to actually.
Because I've done
But-
that, and I've
but-
done that for people. I did it on the water in Texas to figure out why my buddy's battery, his lithium battery was dying.
Yeah.
Because he had a standalone lithium battery just for his electronics. It was a 50 amp hour, just like the ones you had.
Yep.
So we did the math on what electronics he had. And like I'm sitting here googling amp draw on like all of his
You do your-
electronics.
you do your
and added it up, and
maximum-
I'm like, according to my calculations, 8 hours, and
Yeah.
we got like 8.5 hours off the battery.
Yep. You do your maximum amp draw divided by your amp hours, and
Yep.
that will give you the approximate amount of runtime per battery at 100% capacity.
Yeah.
At 100%. So the difference is this is rating how long your battery is going to last when your trolling motor is on 10 speed.
Right, and you can do it for 10, 8, 10, 9,
Right.
8, 7, whatever, because like Minn Kota gives you the amp draw.
But how
for
many
each- for
amps
each
you burn on 10 and how many amps you burn on a non-windy day running on 3
Is
is
a
going to
world of difference.
quadruple
Yeah.
the amount of runtime that you actually get. So there's so many people that are like, I need 350 amp hours worth of battery to put in here. It's like,
Yeah, if you run
if
on,
you're gonna run on 10 speed for 7 hours straight, yes, but
If you
you're
were-
not going to do that.
I think an 80-pound Minn Kota runs.
55 amps max draw
Is it 55?
on the 24 volt Ultrax. I believe it's about 55 amps max draw.
That would make sense because it's a 60 amp breaker.
Yes.
So 55 amps. So theoretically, I can run for like 2 hours on my batteries on 10
But that's you're saying nonstop.
if
Yeah,
I'm on it
but
nonstop.
you're running on 3 and 4.
If I
so
go to
you're only
5
drawing 15 amps.
But if I was going to say if I go to 5, so that's 55. 5 is only like 20 amps.
Mm-hmm.
So I can run constantly on 5 now instead of now I'm at like 6 hours.
Right.
If you have 55 amps at 10, you're going to be running 27 amps at.
It's
5?
I think it's
And
less,
this
I
is
think it's
a
actually it's less than half.
This is consistent runtime too. This is not you just tapping your trolling motor to move 10 feet and then letting off. This is pressing your pedal down and consistently running for a large amount of time. So many people oversize their batteries because they're like, oh, such and such and such. You're only tapping your battery on 4 power every couple of minutes. You're not drawing the amount of amps that Minn Kota calls for in their instructions. Minn Kota wants you to have like 200 hours minimum for a 80-pound thrust 24 volt trolling motor.
So amp draw on 10 is actually 33.4 average amp draw,
Really?
and at 5 is 6.4.
Yeah.
So you're pulling 5 times as many amps.
Yeah.
So if you get on a 100 amp hour, it will be 3 hours on a 100 amp hour battery, or 15 hours on 5. And now,
Huge
and that's 15 hours of standing on the
Right.
trolling motor.
Right.
This
on
is
the spot.
why when I sized my batteries to put my Tarova on my John boat, I got 250 amp hour lithiums that are wired in series.
So you're getting
They're
100
wired
volt.
in series. They are not wired in parallel.
So you're
So
getting
you're running 12
100.
volt.
I am running 50 amp hours, 24 volts. I'm not running 100 amp hours.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I'm
you're
running
running.
50 amp
Yeah.
hours, 24 volts. I can fish for 2 days on my boat.
I see, and I can't. Well, you know what? On an average day, not windy. If I'm
On a windy day,
if I'm not,
charge it overnight. But
I can say on an average day, I could probably fish 2 or 3 days on my batteries.
yeah,
If I'm fishing a lot of current, if I'm pre-fish, now it's different if I'm pre-fishing for like a tournament because I'm covering so much water
what's up, Mr. Larry?
that I'm running those batteries down. I'll run them down to 70, 60%. So I could maybe get 2 days. What I look at, like, I don't need to get 2 days out of them, but it's a fail safe for me. Say I trip a breaker while I'm charging
But
my
what if
batteries.
you're fishing away from home and you don't have the ability to plug in?
Well, I'm never going to do that. So,
Right, and most places like when we've gone out of town or whatever, most hotels are like.
I
yeah,
stay at
sure,
a campsite.
like
I make sure I stay at a campsite for like a camper so that I have.
yeah, you have
But
the power.
it's a fail safe for me. Like, I can fish 2 days. I'm still gonna plug it in at night.
yeah.
I might be close to making it on 2 days, but if I kick a breaker, or the power goes out or something like that, like, I'm good. I don't necessarily need the 100 amp hour all the time, but
It's nice to have.
like I said, it's a fail safe. If something goes wrong, somebody unplugs my boat, maybe somebody kicks a cord,
Right.
shit
Stuff
happens, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I run 100 amp hours.
Yeah,
They're $700 a piece. Like Martin tells me all the time, what does he say? Spend one,
Yeah, it's buy once, cry once.
buy once, cry once. Yeah, exactly. Buy once, cry once. They're warranted for 10 years.
Right. If you're as serious as you are, then it's worth it.
Funny story, Tom. My AGMs got me back from down past Battery Island all the way back to Tidings on the trolling motor. That's the one. If you ever have a motor issue, that's the greatest reason to have an Ultrex. Because I just sat back in the driver's seat, pulled out the remote,
Yeah.
and went like this the whole time, and just drove myself back to the ramp with the trolling motor.
That's awesome.
Ate a sandwich, had some snacks. Yeah, but yeah, properly properly sizing your batteries is super important. And this all goes with preparation for the season, right? Check your batteries. How old are your batteries that are in your boat? Do they need replaced? Are they going to last you when you get out there? Did you keep them charged over the winter? Some of those, that's some of the things that you want to think about when you're getting ready for the season here is maybe you need to get new batteries. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to get lithium batteries. I fish a ton of tournaments.
Makes sense.
I want something reliable.
Yep.
So that's why I got lithiums. I need something that's going to last, and it's going to last me all day. So not everybody needs lithiums, but if you are fortunate enough to be able to afford them, I promise they're worth it. In figuring 10 years, I go through batteries. I go through normal batteries about every 2 years anyway. So
And how
that's
long is a
sets of-
lithium battery supposed to last you?
They're supposed to last 10 years.
That's great.
They're warranted for 10 years.
That's awesome.
So if they last 10 years, that's 5 sets of batteries. What's 5 sets of batteries cost? 350 for a set. For the AGMs that I was running times 5 is $1,700.
Right.
My lithiums were $1,400. So, but yeah. So other things so that's just one of those batteries are one of those things to look at when you're prepping for the season.
Yeah.
I know we spent a lot of time talking about that. So we talked about rod and reel maintenance, line. We talked about your trolling motor batteries and making sure your trolling motor batteries are good, making sure you have proper trolling motor batteries. What are some other things that you do to get ready for the season? What do you guys do? What about tackle? Like, how do you decide what tackle you're
Always,
putting in?
definitely. One thing that I did that everybody has to do throughout the season, but I definitely bend out a couple hooks here and there and just chuck them back in the box and tie another one on and forget about it. You got to go back through your baits and definitely check your hooks out. Make
Oh,
sure
yeah.
you get them
Absolutely.
rusty hooks off. Swap out some new freshies, some new stickies.
I think
And
Do you know,
like,
do
you
you know how
can-
long that would take me to do if I did it?
I know. I have a lot of hooks that are bent and
Like
stuff
500
too, but
crankbaits in a
I
boat.
try to the baits that I know that I mainly like to throw, like my Mega Bass Knuckles.
Spend like
and my
2,000
shower
hours on
blows
hook
and
swap. If I
everything.
had to swap, I swap them all out. I swap out my hooks when I tie them on. So that's the first thing I do when I tie a bait on is check the hooks. And if the hooks, if I feel one point that just doesn't feel quite right, I'll swap them out. It takes 10 seconds.
You
to
want to
swap
take a
out the hook.
file to it?
I don't. No. I just swap them out.
So for me personally, when it comes to like actually preparing, like you can order as much stuff as you want, but like you're always gonna need something in the last minute, right? And the Dick's at White Marsh was my place to go for the last minute stuff. And now that they've gotten rid of their hunting and fishing section,
Yeah, no
all of
more.
that stuff has been sent to Bel Air, but Bel
Time
Air is
to
gonna get.
pre-plan.
But Bel Air is getting rid of their stuff eventually too, and it's not going to be too much longer. Where like no Dick's is going to have a hunting and fishing section.
So
They're
I
gonna
was
make-
told. I was
How's
told
that
Bel Air.
business even profitable without a hunting and fishing section?
So they're making their own. So Dick's.
I was told that the Bel Air hunting and fishing is not going anywhere.
Uh,
From management. That was from management at White Marsh.
okay, so when my buddy works. No, so yeah, no, I get it. My buddy, he still works at the Dick's in White Marsh, and he worked the hunting and fishing section. Like,
Yeah.
that was like his spot. And from what I've heard from him, eventually it will. And because Dick's is, I think, trying to make their own separate outdoor
But they already had that.
facility.
And
There's
it
only
failed.
one.
No, they had field-
There's one in PA.
They had Field and Stream.
No. So that's not what I'm talking about.
But that was it. But they had their own standalone.
Right,
store.
right.
And it failed hard.
Yes.
Who was Field and Stream was bought by Cabela's, I thought.
No,
No,
Field and Stream was bought by Dick's.
Dick's. It was by Dick's.
Was
but
it
this is
really?
going to be. But this is going to be
That's why
like
they
their
had
own
the,
like
the-
outdoor world. I think is and I think they have one in PA. I don't know what I forget what it's called, but they have one in PA. But like
Did they buy the Gander Mountains?
I don't know.
Let's take a gander.
There's a Gander Mountain in Pennsylvania. I think they got bought by somebody.
It might. I have no idea.
thought
That
all that
much
was,
I
like,
don't know.
closing down.
But that's what sucks for me personally is being able to go somewhere at the last minute, the night before to get something, and now I have to like way ahead of time plan, or else I'm going 45 minutes to Bass Pro.
So, but
Which Bass Pro and Bass Pro, like I hate Bass Pro. I can't stand Bass Pro. But you know, if it's
they
you know,
don't
if I
even
need
carry
something-
good shit anymore.
Right. If I need something like the day before a tournament, like I'm screwed if they
Yeah.
if we don't have anything local to be able to get that stuff.
What do you like to purchase at
I will
Dick's
say-
that is tickles your fancy?
Yeah, what's your go-to like if you need to?
I mean,
Are you
a
a
lot of
VMC
it.
hook guy?
Huh?
Are you a VMC hook guy?
Yeah, like I'll get VMC hooks. I'll get like I mean, if I just need something to like work in the moment, like if I know I'm out of whatever specific something I need, I'll just go get like something of a soft plastic that's similar,
I
or
will
like
say-
hooks.
West Marine has a pretty good selection.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
they got a pretty good bass fishing selection.
Dude, you know how badly I wish that we lived closer to the Hookup Tackle USA?
I just wish I lived closer to Susquehanna Fishing Tackle.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
I
that'd be
wish it
great to
wasn't-
live
I
close
haven't
there.
even
too.
made
I
it
wish it
out
wasn't
to.
an hour
I
and
haven't
15
even
minutes
made it
away.
out to SQT yet. So
SFT. Oh god.
So SFT, I haven't even
SFT
made
is
it
the
out there. I
best.
was supposed to go out there the other week.
Ask.
Man,
I saw
I just-
Brandon. I saw Brandon McMillan. He was on there. He went up there last Friday, I think, and he sent me a. He just sent me a picture of his. He sent me a picture of his retreat. Was like first time at SFT. This place is pretty nice. He spent like fucking. Like
So-
$500.
Zachary Allbig, I think I'm pronouncing your last name right, says 350 amp hour Ionics on a 19-foot Bass Cat 36 volt system. Hopefully get me all day. So,
So-
he's going to be running 50 amp hours on the 36 volt system.
And which is 36 volt pulls less
Is
amps.
less amps.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
he might be okay.
So you might be able to get away with that for
Yep.
sure. Now that's a 112 volt thrust system.
100 pound.
I'm assuming.
112 pound.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
It does pull less amps though. So-
Zach, when you go out and you test your boat, send us a message and let us know what your results are.
Yeah,
with
I
those
would like to know
batteries.
for sure.
I'm very. I'm
Especially
And
actually.
like, do you want him to like hammer down on it to get these results?
No,
Or, like,
just like
in
Fish
What-
general,
normally,
like a
just let us
regular
know
fish
what you
day.
did.
normally, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I fish for I fish for 6 hours. It did X, Y, Z, and my batteries were
Yeah.
75%.
Gotcha.
Or
So, like I
90%
said,
or whatever.
the next videos that I'm going to be working on, because it seems like I feel like it's a large subject in the fishing world right now, is like people upgrading to the lithium batteries is a lot of, like, when anybody gets a bad battery right now, the first thing they do is they go, well, should I and can I upgrade to lithium?
I mean, the reason that I upgraded to lithiums is because the AGMs that I normally use were not in stock anywhere. Because I wasn't paying, an exorbitant amount of money for trolling motor batteries that were like lead acid or AGM, I was using the Duracell AGMs, which are made by Deca, that are available at Sam's Club. They were like $160 a piece,
Right.
and they didn't have them like at any Sam's Club. They were not available. The Decas, which blows my mind. It's the same exact battery with a different label. Were like $250 a piece. And I'm like, well, if I'm paying $250 a piece, I'm just gonna get lithiums.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just gonna.
The way things are
Put out the
trending
money
too,
and get it.
that's what it's just going to become anyways.
I mean, there's a massive payback on the lithiums, in my opinion. First of all, if you're going to be replacing a lead acid battery every 3 to 5 years, within that, within 10 years, you're going to pay for what you had in a lithium battery. On a lithium battery, the ionic batteries that I run have an 11-year guaranteed warranty.
I mean, I was replacing.
11 years. If something happens, you're getting a freshie. And I have already gone through their customer service, not because I had a battery failure. It was a fault of my own. I broke off one of the terminals on the battery, securing one of my trolling motor wires to it. And I emailed them and I told them what happened, and they said, hey, no problem. And they sent me a brand new battery.
That's awesome.
That I had on my doorstep 5 days later. And you can't beat customer service like that.
No, not at all.
What I was reinforcing earlier when you left the
taking
room
a
was
piss.
when you were taking a wee
Wee.
was, lithium. You don't need lithiums. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're not trying to spend a lot of money and you just fish once or twice a month, lithiums are probably not for
Right.
you. Your lead acid batteries are probably going to last you 4 or 5 years, and you'll be fine with lead acid batteries. You don't need that. But if you're somebody serious like I do, I mean, I fish probably 200 days a year, or very close to it. Maybe a little less this year. I slacked off this winter, but if you're somebody that fishes 200 days a year, I was replacing my lead acid batteries every 2 years because they wouldn't. I would get once I got to like the end of the second season, you would start at the end of the tournament day. You'd feel them start getting weak.
Right.
They weren't at 100%. So and so they're gone.
They're 60 to 60% capacity. You can have a lead acid battery that's rated for 100 amp hours, but essentially what you just bought is a battery that's rated for 50 amp hours. Because at 50% capacity, you start to lose amperage, you start to lose
they still put it so
power, and you can also damage the cells in the lead acid battery.
So here,
it's not a true 100 amp hour battery.
Right, and that's what most people don't understand about lead acid is when you look at amp hours on lead acid, it's still, it can still put out because I think that when they do their amp hour test, it's like 20 amps or whatever for however many hours, however they test it. But it'll still put out the same amperage at a lower voltage.
Right.
So it's putting out the same amperage, lower voltage, where that voltage is what's running your trolling motor and keeping your trolling motor running. It's not the amp. The amps are not what's running your trolling motor. It's the voltage.
Right.
So once that voltage drops to a certain point, I mean, you're just steadily like losing power on your trolling motor.
Just drawing more.
Yeah.
I swear on the lithiums just because of the 100% battery output. It's a 50 amp hour battery is a true 50 amp hour battery. That battery will run until 0% at full capacity.
Well, 10%. They have a shut off.
Fail safe. Which is another reason to get some of this. You're not going to damage your batteries because of some of the safeties.
No, I mean I have seen some. I've heard some horror stories about lithium batteries. With them going into safe mode and stuff like that. I personally have not had an issue with
Which
that.
batteries are those?
Ionics.
The Ionics?
I had a friend of mine that had an issue with the Ionics.
Okay. And how did he contact customer support?
He did, but he was not happy with it because it happened while he was traveling. He was in New York for a tournament.
Okay.
So he ends up being screwed, pretty much for like the tournament because it's outside of customer service hours and
right.
So it's it sucked and he ended up just going and buying 3 lead acid batteries and throwing them in, throwing
Just so
them
he
in
can
his boats just so
fish.
he could fish. Yeah, so it happens, but
That hurts.
yeah, I
That
think
hurts.
I will say when I get my new boat, unless it comes with lithiums, my lithiums are coming out of my Champion for sure.
To go in the
Yeah.
new boat. You're gonna sell the Champion, right?
I'll probably trade it in.
Trade, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't trade it in with your lithiums in
No,
it.
it's also not getting traded in with my.
Your new boat's not gonna come with lithiums unless you order them.
It depends on what brand I go with. A lot of them, like all of the White River Marine boats come with lithiums now.
Really?
Yeah, all Triton, Ranger, Nitro, all come with lithiums now.
My brand new 19AP better come with some lithium juice in it then.
Oh.
Probably not
They
because
probably throw the
it's-
same batteries that were in there. I promise you, if they're replacing the hull, they are
No,
slapping
I had to
all of your
freaking-
old stuff on there.
Yeah, they are. But I had to take the batteries out of the boat before I sent it back.
Ah.
Everything had to come off. That was just easily removed.
So they're probably just gonna send it back.
Battery.
Yeah, they'll probably send it back.
So they're sending me
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to 2023 Hall with the motor. The
It would be
Jaguar,
nice if they
the
slapped
Alltrex,
they slapped a
and
couple
the
of lithium
sonar
batteries.
mounts.
You
They
should just get
slapped a
back
couple
and be
lithium
like,
batteries in there to test it out.
Yeah.
just get it back. Be like, what happened to my batteries? What'd you guys do?
Well, that's one of the things I asked them because I was like, so I sent the boat back, and you guys made me take the seats off the boat.
They made you
before.
take the seats off the boat?
Not the pedestal seats.
Oh, okay.
They made me take the pedestal seats off the boat for like travel purposes. So I have the pedestal seats like still in my garage, and I
You
was
have to
like,
sit them on every now and then.
Yeah.
Spin.
oh, they're so great, so great. Dude, the backrest is so nice. Like,
You love the old man seat.
yes, I really do.
I
dude.
knew you would.
I got bad ankles, bro. Like, but anyway, so like I have them in the garage, and I was like, so I'm changing the color of the boat. You guys aren't gonna send me a boat with no seats that match, right? And she was like, well, what kind of seats did your other boat have? And I was like,
What they are blue.
I was like, it came with the normal blue seats. And she was like, oh, no. She was like, no, this boat will come with the same seats that you had for this one. And I was like, okay. I'm like, well, what about these blue ones
You
that I
sell
have?
them.
And she's like, oh, no.
You sell them.
$20.
No,
Tree City.
because those seats, just the seat themselves to replace it, like the
Yeah, I'm pretty
just
sure
the
they're
pedal
like
seat
$200 to $300.
is like 100. Well, I think what did I pay for? Because I replaced both my seats. I think it was like $450 just for the seats without the poles.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I still have those in the garage, and I'm supposed to be getting the new boat in the new color with the new seats and all. So I don't know. Maybe Bowers will ask for them when I go pick up the boat. I got no idea.
Yeah, the posts themselves are over $100.
I'll take it.
So I mean,
You're making money on this deal, it sounds like.
Well, I
sell
mean,
it,
I'm going
you know,
from a 2021 haul to a 2023 haul.
and sell them
I
for
mean,
like
no matter what your values go
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah.
sell them seats for like a couple $150 a piece.
It'll put some fuel in the boat.
Yeah.
Put some gas in there.
That's like one tank.
Yeah. One tank.
Dude, so I didn't. I went up to. I fished Susquehanna last Sunday. So I didn't have. I had like almost no gas in the boat. I was down down to like an eighth of a tank. God, that hurt. I put like $150 of gas in my boat.
Yeah.
No one said fishing was cheap.
Gosh, no, it's
No.
not.
Nothing about fishing is
No.
cheap.
I'm
Nothing
hoping
about
maybe
it.
maybe I'll get a 4-stroke and it'll be a little more fuel efficient.
And the 4-stroke, I'm excited to get my Ranger back and actually test the damn thing. I hope it's not, I hope it comes back and it runs the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, I want something that runs over 70.
See, if mine breaks 50, supposedly I should be happy.
Really? I think you'll get.
Dude, I've seen so many mixed reviews. I see guys that are like, oh, I run 50 in mine, and then I see other guys that are saying they're running 65 in theirs, and I'm like,
Probably what you
It's
have
a
in the boat,
massive
though,
difference.
right? Like, it's probably how much stuff you have in the boat with you. Also,
Well, I
that
mean,
makes a huge difference.
My boat.
People.
So if my boat's
15
empty,
mile an hour difference?
I will say if my boat's empty, like if I don't have any of my tackle, if I don't have any of my if I run it on like a quarter tank of gas, no tackle, before I put the Ultrex on it, I could run like 62 with all my shit with stuff in it and a full tank of gas. I run like 55. So I mean, you can get a huge that's a 7 mile an hour difference.
So those
just
guys are
with-
probably
just
giving their
weight.
numbers at their best that they can do with nothing in it, not as much.
65
gas.
seems like a little bit of a stretch though.
Right. I mean, people.
I could see 60. I mean, an aluminum hauled boat is not going to run as fast as a fiberglass hauled boat, just because of the way the hull design is.
Right.
There's more. There's more boat there's more pad in the water, so there's more friction, stuff like that. But it's not going to run as fast. So I could see 65 is probably a stretch, but 60 empty, I could see that. I know my buddy had.
We'll find out.
My buddy had a Tracker 198, so very similar to your Ranger. And with his rods and his gear in there, he would run 52, 53. That would be like the best he could get. And I think if you get 52, 53,
I feel like that's plenty fast, honestly.
You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Running 100 miles an hour across the water, I feel like isn't really ideal.
I don't want to run 100. I just want to run 75.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited for this season.
Okay.
I didn't get to fish a lot last season. I did miss a lot of fishing.
But you still made state team.
You did make the state team. I didn't make the state team.
It was a gift from God.
I'm going to try to make the state team. Mr. Bass on the Upper Bay this year, April 15th and 16th. It's on my home water and in my wheelhouse.
Absolutely, do it.
It's
man.
it's gonna take such a giant bag to win that tournament.
Yeah.
For 2 days, I would not be surprised that time of year if it doesn't take 22 pounds a day to win.
I ain't never seen those numbers before.
That's some like John Jedry numbers there.
Yeah.
I wonder if John's fishing it. That's it. That's like his time of year.
Oh, probably. I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's like his time of year for Mr.
Yeah.
For that.
He just asked me to be his link for the SQT trails, and
Yeah.
I knew there's like 4 tournaments I was gonna miss. I looked at the calendar and I was gonna miss like 2 of the 4. So I was like, yeah, I'm probably not your guy.
Yeah, I need to find a link too. I gotta register for those. I gotta look at the application and see when the cutoff is. It would be nice if it was after Mr. Bass.
Right.
That way I didn't
You can only
pay in
hope.
advance. I want to scoot in at the last minute so that I don't double pay. Because if I am lucky enough to finish in the top 2 in Mr. Bass, I would not like to fish the trail.
I also
Because
realized too when they sent out like the schedule for like the practice and the actual fishing, it's like the entire week. Like I'm gonna have to take off a whole week to practice fish and then fish the tournament.
I mean, so you can play that how you want.
I mean, I could fish all 3 days or 2 days for the practice tournament, and then basically, the 3 days for the tournament.
But you would want to, but what's the point, right? What's the point of working one day that week?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to take
Take off the whole week.
take off the whole week.
It's on the Potomac. You could just wing it.
Yeah. I mean, so I've tried to look it up and I've tried to ask around. I don't think I've got like a definite answer. Do you know if you have to pre-fish with somebody who's in the tournament?
Yes.
Okay. you
Has to
have
be somebody who's in the tournament.
Okay.
And it has to be somebody from your team, from your state. You
Gotcha.
can't pre-fish from somebody that's outside of your state. So
If anybody knows anybody who's fishing it that does not
you'll get
have a fishing partner.
So they'll have them. You'll have a meeting at some
Gotcha.
point for the regional, and you can kind of like get to know somebody and just find somebody.
Get in with them.
I don't know who's on the state team this year. I could probably tell you in a couple of seconds if I typed it into the right area. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this season too. I'm looking forward to getting a new boat.
Shit, dude, I'm looking forward to the season. I'm looking forward to floating on that freaking luxurious Ranger when it comes back. Got my beer cooler on that thing. Power poles. I've never had anything like this in my entire... First off, I'm just saying I busted my ass
Yeah, you did.
to accumulate enough moolah to get this boat.
For sure.
Secondly,
I'm just gonna put myself into massive amounts of debt to get it.
yeah, to
go from I do my John boat. In my opinion, no matter what, like there's some people that have really nice John boats. Lou has a really nice John boat. I really like Lou's John boat
I can't
a lot.
yeah.
My John boat is a little bit rougher than Lou's do, but I freaking love like my John boat. It's not luxury, you know, doesn't have the cooler,
Where you
No
take
carpet,
it gets you around. And
wood.
it does what you
Where
need
it
to
takes
do.
me, it gets me around. I'm not worried about it. But man, there's something about just having a unit where when it's time to like, you just want to sit back and stretch your legs or whatever. Like you got a nice pedestal seat. You can go sit in a nice comfy seat in the console. It's got the center console in between, which is a step to go to the back, which I really like. I really don't like the middle seats. I think it's stupid. I would rather have the coin box.
Right.
And within the coin box is a phone charger. Charge your phones, put your wallet in there, put your phone in there, keep those distractions in the coin box.
You got a dual console, you said?
I have a dual console
Yeah, thanks
for
for thinking about me. I appreciate
Absolutely. I have a dual console, and I got the jack. It came with a jack plate. And I put power poles on my boat, and I'm just like, I'm excited to experience fishing on a more, dare I say, professional style boat, but on a more, you know, something more uppity.
Yeah, I get it.
Got
trust
some
me.
luxury
Yeah.
on it, you know what I mean? It's just like I've been on this John boat for 6 or 7, probably 6 years fishing now.
I remember when you got that thing. Dude.
Yeah.
I remember when we were taking it out.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing.
I've had it forever. I've just been fishing on it forever, and I've just like, it's really cool to finally experience something different. And I've had so many people, I've had so many people message me and be like, "Hey, are you selling the John boat?" And I'm just like, no.
Never.
There is not a chance in hell that I'm ever gonna sell my John boat.
I couldn't find the results. Their website's messed up.
I have, so we've
So,
gotten emails, and I have
I
the
heard.
list of people that are
So
in there.
so Greg asked what I'm going to get. I do not know, Greg. That is up in the air. I'm going to get whatever is the best deal because they're all good.
You feel that way?
There's not really.
You got a nitro?
So I talked to Andrew Sams
I like
the
the
other day.
nitros, to be honest with you.
I asked him, I'm like, how does your nitro run? And he's like, honestly, he's like, it handles rough water as good as any other boat that I've been in, and I couldn't see paying $10,000 to $20,000 more for a more popular boat.
Yeah.
That went for a boat that does the same thing.
Martin's boats.
I love
Martin's
dude.
boat, dude.
His
Martin's boat
boat's
is
sweet.
sexy.
It's
I
so
love it.
nice.
I haven't rode in it, but I really like it. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that. I think it's got a 175 on it.
Martin's boat.
Yeah, I think so.
The thing, dude, that thing
Z18.
rips. It rips on that Z18.
Yeah, it's a. I wish I had a 175.
I
on
fished
mine.
with him up at Conowingo, and it was a great ride.
I'm looking. So as far as my brand preferences, though, Phoenix or Basket. I really, really like Phoenix. I'm a big fan of theirs. I
Why
don't
are
want a
you?
Ranger.
Are you a fan of Phoenix just because it is like that popular ass brand right
No,
now?
not at all. So my buddy has a 2021 Phoenix 920 Elite. It's fast. It handles rough water really well. I really like the layout of the boat. That's why I like Phoenix. It has nothing to do with popularity. The layout is more important to me than the popularity of the boat.
It is 110% that up and coming like boat right now.
It's probably
Lots
the
of
most
people are
popular
talking-
boat out.
Yeah,
I
for
bet
sure.
I bet it's probably overtaken Ranger in the last couple of years in boat
I think so.
sales.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think that's because what was the deal with the professional fishing and Ranger? They dropped Ranger and now it's Phoenix, right?
Yeah, so MLF dropped Ranger, or Ranger dropped MLF. They dropped their sponsorship,
Right.
and now Phoenix sponsors those tournaments. And Phoenix has a really good contingency program. It's for like a Toyota Series, it's like $7,000 if you win a Toyota Series.
Martin, how are you already thinking about a next boat? You just got yours.
Martin's a baller.
Apparently. I like your boat, Martin.
I like
love
Martin's
it.
boat a lot.
So buy Martin's boat so he can buy a Phoenix.
Yeah,
those
if you,
blue poles on Martin's boat.
I was looking at a Skeeter today too.
Skeeter makes a very nice boat.
Um,
Skeeter makes a very nice. Kevin's boat is very nice. I just thought that, like, I couldn't stand in the front and fish with Kevin.
So the new boats are
like
different.
I didn't feel like it was big enough for that, even though it's almost a 20-foot unit.
yeah, I feel that way. I feel like it's a little cramped up there too, in Kevin's boat.
But
new
on
boats,
my
not like
my
that.
Ranger, I feel like I could fish with 3 people on the front deck of
Well,
my Ranger. It's freaking massive.
I would say like you'd have to look at like the size of the back deck too. A lot
Right.
of older boats have
Right.
larger back decks.
Yeah.
Now the idea is to have a larger front deck because that's what people want.
His boat will also run freaking 75 miles an hour, and mine won't
Not
touch
quite.
50.
Not quite 75.
So it is.
I think
like,
he's headed to 72.
You know, it probably, you know, my boat might be wider in terms of the beam or something like that, making it more room, but the boat is probably a lot slower in terms of performance and stuff because of
I
it.
don't know if it's just me, but I've only you know you see a couple here and there, but I've never been on one. But like I feel like the Gambler boats have a ginormous deck.
Gamblers are badass.
I've heard. I mean, Tony talks about it.
They have a
24/7.
big
But
deck and they
I
go
think-
fast. Dude, it's
Giggity.
like they have
But
a
I
big
feel
deck
like-
and they go fast.
Yeah, like that's what I feel like. I feel like the front end of it's just like a mile long. I mean, at least
Well,
just like looking.
And that's what, and the reason that a lot of the reason that boats are faster now is because of the bigger front deck. Because you're moving the weight backwards.
right.
So if you're putting more weight in the back, you get more bow lift. So if your cockpit is say 12 inches closer to the front, the weight it throws the weight ratio off. You know, figure a 200 pound person, it throws the weight ratio off. It's like having like 60 more pounds in the front.
So you're saying you're not getting that like lift
Yeah.
at launch.
Yeah, so they've made a lot of the newer boats have smaller back decks, and the cockpit's been moved farther back, so that when you're on pad, the weight's farther to the back of the
Gotcha.
boat, which is why bass boats in general are faster now.
Greg says his next boat is going to be one of the low camos. That's the I can't remember what it's the low.
Just get a Gator Tracks. Get a
You
Gator.
just go with the Gator Tracks, but I was looking at them too. You know what? You can get them in like a 20-foot boat too.
Oh yeah, they make a full size bass boat.
Yeah, it's
So Zachary's saying $125,000 for the Icon. I feel like that's
The
a little
what?
overpriced.
The what?
That's the boat that Jacob Wheeler designed. The one he's running now.
Gotcha.
oh. Apparently Zachary is one of our top fans.
Oh sweet.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Zachary,
Zach.
Thank
for
you,
being
Zachary.
one of our top fans.
Send him a wave.
So yeah, 125,000. That's a little out of my price range. So,
You said you wanted to go into some debt. There's your chance. right now.
I'm not trying to have another mortgage.
Yeah, you know what? Even when you take one of those lows, it's like a low rough country or a low.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. When you get that in the center console with the jet and you load it out with the shit you want,
Man, it's like
you're
$55,000,
you're
$60,000.
still up there in a bass boat price.
Well, that's I mean,
you
if you
really
think,
are.
think about how much electronics are. You know, it's
It's-
if I put 4 12-inch units on my boat, like if I'm getting a new boat, and I put
Which is
4
excessive in my opinion.
2 in the front, 2 in the back, not excessive to me. Because you got one, you know, you figure if you got one, I'm using one for
I'm
316.
talking about 2 units, one in the front, one in the console.
Well, you
You're
have to
still
also
looking
think
at bass
about,
boat prices.
So I'm running-
the type of fishing he's doing.
So I'm running
compared
one
to
for
what
3,
you're doing.
one for 360, one for live, run the front, right? You could get away with one in the back. Like I don't need. Do I need 2
Yeah.
in the back? No, I could get away with 1 in the back. 2
It
is
looks
nice.
cool as hell.
Well, 2 is nice because you can have your maps up on one and your side imaging on the
Right,
other.
right.
So you can follow your maps over here to follow your contour lines while you're scanning. I do a lot of scanning, so 2 comes in very handy for me.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times I would kill to have 2 units. So 4 12-inch units, I mean, they're $2,600 a piece. That's $10,000. I mean, that's $10,000 just in the graphs. That's not counting, you know, your network cables, your network box. That's not counting like the live transducer. You know, if you're going to,
Installation.
oh,
if you
I'll
don't do
ins-
it
yeah,
yourself.
I'll install
I
it.
feel like at that
I'll do it all
point,
myself.
fishing has to be like your job. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, or it's got to be, you know, something
Or
that
your
you're,
job just has to make an excessive amount of money.
right. Like if you have it, like do it. But like,
or you just put yourself into an excessive amount of time.
right, just keep going. Just rack
I
it
just
up.
did like as much as I would love to put myself in so much debt as so that I could have 5 12-inch unit on my boat with live scope and 360 and all that bull crap. It's like, dude, if they would give me a 0% interest rate, I would do it. I
Budget-
would put myself in the debt.
budget, but it's like 6 and 7%.
They kill you so hard on interest that it is just.
So
Dude, the banks can pound
somebody was-
sand, bro. Like I will save up under my pillow until
somebody
I'm
said
ready.
somebody did the math on somebody posted it was $107,000 Ranger, and so they and like they put the payments the payments on there for I think it was like $700 a month or something like that for 20 years. So for the amount of time of the loan, for that $115,000 boat, they were paying like $80,000 in interest. Like they were paying another boat in interest.
so
That's
crazy.
what I'm saying. Like,
But
and
some of those
people
guys-
are dumb, stupid like that, though. Dude.
Some of those guys are, some
They
of the,
look at
not-
the monthly
and I'm not
payments
talking about.
instead of the grand scheme of
Yeah,
things.
that's me. Monthly payment, man.
Deck baby, let's go.
So some of those guys will run a boat. They'll run the boat for 4 years until it's getting ready to go out of warranty, and then they'll just trade it in and get a new boat where they're carrying their boat payment because they always have a boat. Under
Yes.
warranty. So I can see that for maybe somebody who guides or somebody something like that where you always have something that's under warranty.
Right.
If
Or
a
somebody who
$500,
fishes
if
a
a
lot.
$500-$600 a month payment is just something that you can wipe your
If you
butt
can
with
budget that.
repetitively,
Or if you can budget that.
yeah, whatever.
you
then,
make
like,
sacrifices.
like whatever. If that's something,
You don't-
if you can do that, if that's something that's really easy for you to do, then like
How much
do
Bud
your
Light do you
thing.
drink a month?
But like, huh?
How much Bud Light do you drink a month?
Cut it.
Not a boat payment. It's not a boat
Is it
payment. I can
close?
tell you that much.
But things like that, like if you can make
What's
sacrifices.
a 30-pack a week?
Oh yeah, that's not that much. That's like what, $100, $100 a month. 30 packs, what, $25?
Yeah, 30-pack, a little bit more. Depends,
$27.99.
Yeah.
Something like. So say $30, so it's $120 a month. But if you can budget, if you can budget yourself out to have that payment, good for you. Yeah, then do your thing. That's kind of the key there. Is
That was my deal with, because I just went through the whole thing of buying the boat, and this is why I ended
Martin
up
is a
buying
baller.
Martin
that?
is a baller.
Martin balls.
Martin's never been afraid to make a payment. Baller. That's baller status.
Why don't you
right
have a
there.
Z21, Martin?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Why do you got a Z18,
Why don't
Martin?
you have a Z21 Pro, Martin?
If you're not afraid to make a payment, you should have a Z21 XL.
I want you to go
Yeah, Martin.
to Bass Pro and trade
Tomorrow.
that boat in for
Tomorrow.
a Z21
XL.
tomorrow.
Z21 XL. There's one at the Bass Pro in
You won't. You won't.
Arundel Mills right now.
I wanted to have power
Bring it over.
poles and talons on it at the same time.
4 of them. Just looks like a spider.
Just get the dude from Star Wars got like 4 on.
General Grievous.
Yes.
I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd.
I get
You
it.
know, that was another thing. I don't know if Kevin is still watching.
Get a bigger
Kevin,
garage.
Kevin,
Buy a
if you're
bigger
still
garage
watching,
right
say
now.
what's Gucci. Kevin swears on those talons.
He likes his talent.
I don't talon. I don't
Talon.
have enough experience with a talon to say yay or nay.
I will say, my buddy Frank has talons.
They're
And
louder than a power pole.
He told me if he had to do it over again, he would not get talons. He would have power poles.
For what reason?
Because the power poles seem to hold better
Okay.
when you're in the wind and things like that. He said power pole. He's been on boats with power poles. They seem to hold better. And he said he thinks it's because of the angle. So power poles go out. They go back and out.
Right.
So you get a wider.
Martin,
a
if you're
wider
not
stance.
scared to make a payment, you're also not scared to put your Z21 XL in a storage garage.
Or
Or-
just build a bigger garage. Dude.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or just build a pole barn over top of your pool.
Get an extension on the garage. Problem solved.
Dude, put one of those lifts in your garage so you can put the boat on it and then lift it and then put your car underneath of it.
I guess he's just
That'd
not
be
really about it.
Yeah.
Just not really about it.
Yeah,
That'd-
Martin's a
that'd be
bitch. So
Oh, we love Martin.
yeah, we do love Martin a lot, quite a lot. He's a sweetheart. Oh my God! But you know what? Before we end, I have one more thing that we have to go over, and I'm
Why you
sorry.
stealing the
I'm
mic?
stealing the mic. I'm sorry. I'm stealing your mic.
stealing the mic?
I'm
We can
really
hear you.
excited about
We can
this.
hear you.
I don't know. I have to accentuate myself in the mic.
That sounds sexy.
I am
Gotta
super
make it
stoked for my partner in crime in the bass scene, Scuba Steve.
Why's that?
Scuba Steve went down to
Oh, I saw the picture. Yeah, South Carolina.
he was God, and I'm brain farting on the lake.
Is he on Santee Cooper?
It's near it. It's not Santee Cooper.
Marion. Should I just keep like naming off lakes down there? Murray. It wasn't Murray.
Lake Marion.
Marion.
Yeah.
It's
So
part of the Santee Cooper chain.
Scuba Steve is down in Lake Marion, South Carolina right now, and he is fishing with he's with John Hansen.
Oh yeah.
So him and John are down there fishing it right now, and my boy hooked up on his PB today.
What was that, like a 7?
It was 7 pounds,
That was a
and
big one.
I'm so hyped for him right now because it's like, dude. So first off, the weather was going to be questionable for this week down there, and it was up in the air on whether or not they were even going to go.
Tell him. Is he still there? He's still fishing.
Oh yeah, he's still there.
Tell him to
It was the first day.
find it. Tell him to tie on a spinnerbait with the biggest blade that he can find.
You mean like the one that he caught the 7 pounder on?
Like I'm talking like a number 6 willow blade.
Well,
Yeah.
so, anyways, Scuba Steve is down there.
Giant
They're
blade
fishing.
birds.
I don't know any more detail. I don't know any details about what he was fishing or how he was fishing or anything like that.
Apparently
They were
it was
out
on
there
spinnerbait.
fishing. It was on, and Steve caught his PB. Here we go. Check this out. 6.15 ounces, new PB alert.
So, question: Was it
Monster bass.
Was it 6.15 or 6 pounds 15 ounces?
6.15.
Okay.
6 pounds,
So it was a 6
15 ounces.
6 pounds 15 ounces is different than 6.15.
Yeah. 6 pounds.
6 pounds 15 ounces is 1 ounce shy of 7 pounds.
Right?
It's 6 pounds 15 ounces. He was 1 ounce shy of 7 pounds. If you're gonna ask me, I'm calling that a 7 pounder.
Oh yeah,
all
that's
day
7
long
pounds.
now, you
If
know.
it was 6.15,
He could have ate that fish. That fish could have had a freaking blade of grass in its mouth and would have made it 7 pounds.
If it was 6.15 though, that's a 6 pounder.
so
Sorry.
it's a 7-pound largemouth. Everybody can look at that.
That's a big
Just
fish. That's
it's
a
a
good-
big fish,
that's a good one.
beautiful fish, very healthy. I'm very stoked for my partner. Scuba Steve caught that on a spinnerbait.
How's he not smiling in that picture? I
Dude,
cheese him.
I know. So I actually messaged him.
My 8 pounder that I called in Potomac, not smiling.
Oh, come on.
I messaged Steve and I was like, "You're trying so hard to not
Yeah.
smile in this picture right now," and Scuba he's just. I know he's over the moon right now, and I'm super stoked for him. But yes, freaking 7 pounder
That's
down in
awesome,
South
dude.
Carolina. Their first day out fishing today. And here's what brings me to the next thing that makes me even more excited about this is Scuba
Not smiling
Steve.
at all.
Dude, I'd be like crying.
Yes.
Not smiling at all.
Scuba Steve has agreed to come onto the podcast
What?
live in studio
No way!
if he catches a big bass.
He did. Well, he's
And
already.
now
caught
And
that
he
bass.
did on
Yeah.
the
Now
first
he's
day.
gotta
So
come in.
Scuba Steve will be live in studio in the upcoming weeks to talk
I wanna hear
about
about it.
The
the
worst
South
thing,
Carolina trip.
The worst thing about that is he caught his biggest fish the first day he was down there.
Yeah.
So, my PB
But that makes the whole trip worth it, like, right
Yeah.
away.
caught it in the first 20 minutes we were fishing.
Oh my god.
So the rest of the day, we're catching 4 pounders all day. Letdown. Total letdown. We had like 24. We had like 24 pounds
Right.
for our best 5. I was fishing with Dave Wilder.
crazy.
We had like 24 pounds for our best 5. It's like 4 pounder. It's just a 4 pounder.
Right.
I got an 8 pounder in a live well. Like,
Nothing compares
whatever.
I am just.
It's funny how that works. It's like anytime you catch your PB, it's like always like in the first part of the day.
I have
First
been
part of the
working
day.
on trying to get Scuba to come on
I'm
the
really
live
excited
stream
about
for a
that.
while.
I know. I knew that.
So you know
Excited.
he's gonna come on. He's gonna talk about it. He's gonna talk about the trip. And the other thing that I've got Scuba to sign on the dotted line was if me and him take a first place in the Thursday nighter, he also has to come
Oh,
on.
nice.
So we're shooting for that this year. And he just nailed his PB today. Congratulations to Scuba Steve. Super proud of you, dude.
Congrats,
keep
brother.
keep up the hard work and the grind, man. I mean, you know, like I said, it was questionable on whether or not they should even go down there this weekend because of some of the weather. They made the decision to go, and in my opinion, a 7-pound largemouth on the first day makes that trip down there
Totally.
worth it right away. So
Yeah, anytime you catch 7 pounder, I haven't caught a 7 pounder in a while.
yeah, congratulations to you, my dude. And with that, we're gonna wrap up this podcast tonight, or this. I keep calling it a podcast. This is a live stream. We're gonna wrap up this live stream tonight, everybody. We've been on, we've been on here for 2 hours and 16 minutes. I appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening to what we have to say. And before we go, I want to give another shout out to our sponsors, UMA Lure Company. You guys are absolutely awesome. Custom Balsa Wood crankbaits. Check those guys out, or check Tyler out. Good crankbaits, good poppers. Some of the best on the market, in my opinion. I will have one tied on the very first day that I go out fishing this year. And yeah, check
Anybody-
them out.
If anybody wants to fish a
UMALureCo.com.
tournament tomorrow,
What's that?
if anybody wants to fish a tournament tomorrow, show up before 7 at Tidings. We have an open tournament tomorrow. And I forgot to mention that.
Well, we'll get to that. And then another big shout out to Bass Munitions. Bass Munitions soft plastics, custom soft plastics, bassmunitionslures.com, drop shot worms, wackies, creature trailers, Neds. He's also working on jig heads and hooks and all that good stuff as we speak. Check out Bass Munitions. And then our boy Warren with Tailored Lures, tailoredlures.com, or not tailoredlures.com. Message Warren directly on Tailored Lures Facebook. Hit him up, get you some of those frogs. Those frogs are nice, they're edible, they're a nice soft size, they cast really well. Then they come with some very stout hooks, especially for you snakehead guys that need those stout hooks to drive through the tough upper armor of that snakehead's mouth. Thanks to Warren for taking care of us. We appreciate you, brother.
And if you're not buying any of this stuff, what are you doing?
Right?
You're a loser.
What are you doing?
So,
Do
just a side note, if anybody feels like getting up early tomorrow, I am running an open tournament out of Tidings. It is to benefit the TBF of Maryland. So if you would like to come, it is 7 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I would appreciate any support if anybody wants to come out. If not this weekend, next weekend, my club, River Rats Bassmasters here. We have one of the longest running open tournaments on the Upper Bay. We've been running our open tournament for like 22 years or something like that. Next weekend, the 25th, out of Tidings, we'll start sign-ups at like 5:30. So show up the morning of, sign up, have a good time. Weigh-in is at 3 o'clock, Tom.
And if you don't show up to any of those, you're dead to Paul. So
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, basically. Anyways, y'all, thanks for tuning in. Keep all that stuff in mind. Rewatch, share the video. Peace.
R.I.P. to Martin's earbuds.